All right, well, welcome everybody to our March 4th, 2021 regular board business meeting. I'm going to call us to order. We have all of our directors in attendance. Time has been set aside on the agenda for citizens' requests of the board. Due to the coronavirus COVID-19 statewide restrictions, the meeting of the Gresham-Barlow School Board is conducted online rather than in person. If you are a member of the community and wish to provide public comment, please email your comments to Sarah Avery at avery4@gresham.k12.or.us by 5 p.m. the day of the meeting, and your comments will be part of the public record. We've received a number of those comments today, and that'll be part of our agenda later on. So right now we have an agenda in front of us. Board, is there any action?
Yes, I move to amend the agenda to move the highlights, the instructional highlights and the update on ethnic studies and tribal studies to a different date.
I would also like to amend that amendment. We don't know.
You can't do that.
Look at you.
Of including a discussion on teacher vaccinations and are making appropriate accommodations for our vulnerable staff.
Okay, we need a third amendment. Come on, we're on a roll.
All right, well, we have two.
So we need to actually, we
Deal with
have
the
to
first
handle
amendment.
one amendment first. And then if there's additional changes, we would need to go on to that. But
Come on, Sarah, I thought we were doing it right for once.
And to just a point of clarification, Sarah, we didn't ever move to approve the agenda. So is it an amendment?
You can start with removing the items before you approve the agenda.
Yeah, so then we're just
Is that right,
approving
Sarah?
an agenda, right?
that's correct, yeah.
Okay, so we want a motion to modify the agenda.
Okay, so I motion to modify the agenda to remove the instructional highlights and the update on ethnic studies and tribal studies to a different date. Specifically more, yeah, just a different date.
Okay, so it's been moved. Is there a second?
Well, if we second it and then we can make another amendment after it's approved.
Yes.
Okay, I'll second.
So I would second it.
Okay, so it's been moved by Myra, seconded by Chris to approve the agenda with the exception of removing the instructional highlights and the curriculum highlight and moving them to a future agenda item or future meeting. Director Stowers, do you want to amend it?
Do we vote first or do we amend that now?
No, you can amend now.
I would amend it to include the addition of a discussion on accommodations for immunocompromised vulnerable teachers and families, and ensuring that we are providing enough time for teachers to be fully vaccinated before returning to learn.
Okay, is there a second to the amendment?
Second, sorry.
Okay, so it's been moved by Director Stowers, second by Director Roscoe Beach to amend the proposed agenda to include a discussion on teacher vaccinations and a timeline related to their return. I feel like I sold that part short. Director Stowers, can you clarify what language you'd like in that?
Making appropriate accommodation for our compromised staff.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to amend it to have discussion about teachers' vaccines and making appropriate accommodations for immunocompromised staff members. Okay. Sarah, do we have discussion on an amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah.
So any discussion?
I feel like on the second amendment, that information can be presented during the both return to learn update and the superintendent report that's going to include some of that same information. Not sure why we have to have a separate agenda item for that, since that's part of the whole picture of the return to learn conversation.
Okay, any other discussion?
I would say that it's important to make it its own agenda item, as we've received about 100 emails from teachers concerned about these specific issues. And if it's included in or just after, as long as we talk about it, I think that's important to recognize.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so the amendment on the table is to discuss teacher vaccinations and appropriate accommodations for immunocompromised staff members. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to need vocals on this one.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm seeing thumbs up, Director Peluso. That's okay. All those opposed?
Aye or nay.
Okay, so the amendment passes. So now the motion on the table is to approve the agenda but remove the instructional highlights and the curriculum highlights, move them to a future agenda item, but include a discussion about teachers' vaccinations and making appropriate accommodations for immunocompromised staff members. All those in favor of that agenda, or any discussion?
Aye.
on that?
No, sorry.
Aye.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so let me look. We are going to we're going to include that. We're going to move action item return to learn update I3 to I4 and introduce an agenda item for teachers' vaccination schedule update and accommodations for immunocompromised staff members in a hybrid instructional delivery model as action item I3. So again, I3 will be what I just said. I4 will be a return to learn update. Okay, so we do have an agenda. Oh.
Just one point of clarification, the return to learn is also part of the superintendent's report. So I have the intro, but then the presentation is there. So you don't really need to make it a separate item. Sorry.
Okay, so I rescind what I just said. I will have it as D2, Superintendent District Leadership Team Report. We'll introduce it as D2 for you to discuss teacher vaccination schedule and making appropriate accommodations for immunocompromised staff members in a hybrid environment. Does that work? Okay. Consent agenda. We have 7 items on the consent agenda tonight. Items on the consent agenda are matters considered by the board to be routine, and they'll be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the board or persons in the audience request specific items be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. Those 7 items are B1 minutes from the work session on January 21st, B2 minutes from the work session on January 28th, B3, the work session from February 4th minutes, B4, minutes from the regular board business meeting on February 4th, B5, minutes from the special work session on February 18th, B6, financial report as of January 31st, and B7, personnel report employee contracts.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Howitt, second by Director Stowers to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. First on our agenda is recognitions, and Oregon Kid Governor is first up. John Cook, it says your name on it.
Thank you, Chair. The Gresham-Barlow Board of Directors and Administration would like to recognize district students who have exhibited leadership in their local or state community. Brenna Renard, a fifth grade student at Deep Creek, Damascus K-8, was one of 7 nominees chosen statewide to make the ballot for Oregon Kid Governor 2021. She and the other nominees were recognized on February 8th at the inauguration of the winner, Tanish Garg. Brenna will be a member of Tanish's cabinet and will work with him to ensure he accomplishes his plan to fight racism. She will also get a chance to work on the platform she ran on, improving air quality in Oregon.
That's outstanding.
I didn't check, Chair. Hang on a second, I will look. Her principal is here. Ms. Keaton is here. I do not see Brenna, but she could be logged in under her parents' email as well, so I don't know that.
Oh. Well, Ms. Keaton, we're thrilled at your student success. Please share with her family and her how proud we are of her. These recognitions are always a lot more fun in person, but it's wonderful to celebrate the excellence of our students. Next up is staff recognitions, above and beyond the call of duty ABCD awards for classified staff. And this one has Lisa Riggs' name on it.
Thank you, Board Peterson, Chair Peterson, and Board and Superintendent. In recognition of Appreciation Month, staff recognitions of above and beyond the call of duty was created. This award, or ABCD award, recognizes classified staff employees who go above and beyond the call of duty while performing their job responsibilities. All GBSD classified staff that are not in management or supervisory positions are eligible for this award. Through a nomination process, each school chooses a classified employee who is dedicated, inspiring, and makes a difference in their school. So please let us all congratulate the following recipients. And then just so you know, we have certificates that will be mailed. And again, just like celebrations of our students, it's so much more rewarding and fun to recognize people in person, but really excited about wanting to thank each and every one of these folks. So from East Gresham Elementary, Allie Deerdorf. East Orient has Stephanie DeLandro. Hall Elementary has Shannon Peterson. Highland Elementary has Maria Rhodes. Hogan Cedars has Heidi Kaplan. Hollydale Elementary has Jenny Jones. Kelly Creek Elementary has Neil Zeisler, excuse me. North Gresham Elementary has Nina Thomas. Powell Valley Elementary has Kendra Weldon. Clear Creek Middle School has Tanya Allen. Deep Creek Damascus K-8 has Rose Jonkus. Dexter McCarty has Ashley Winklebleck Brown. Gordon Russell has Amy Kroger. West Orient Middle School has Izzy Solorzano Benitez. Excuse me. Gresham High School has Sarah Journey. Sam Barlow High School has Amy Fonken. And Springwater Trail High School has Aaron Norden. And Technology Service, it may be the first time that we've had included them, so thank you for doing that. Cheryl Andrade. Again, we want to thank everyone. It's so exciting to recognize our classified staff during this month, and also recognize them as outstanding above and beyond the call of duty. I know that we have a presentation that has their pictures and and all of that. I know that that probably was included. If not, we will make sure that we do that or share that on the break. Sarah, were you, did you receive that or?
She did.
Okay, great, thanks.
Congratulations, everybody, for your recognition. Lisa, could you really quick highlight, these are peer nominated, these are nominated from their school communities?
Exactly. There's a full nomination process, and so many people at each individual school recognizes that classified employee that really had stood out as a dedicated, inspiring, and supportive staff member. I know not only the board and district office will supply them with a lovely awarded certificate, but I know that they've been celebrated throughout the weeks with little special things that I know our principals are really good at.
All right, well, I can't imagine that a board recognition trumps peer recognition from the people who work with them every day, but I know our family has benefited greatly from our classified heroes. And so anyway, share our congratulations with them. Hopefully some of you are listening in. We're incredibly grateful for you and see how well you serve in this unique environment. Next is our staff recognition Maker Learning at Home grant. And this has Lisa's name on it. Lisa.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure my was on. Thank you to Chair Peterson and the board. This is a special recognition, again, for a staff member that has been awarded, Mr. Matt O'Reilly has been awarded the Maker Learning at Home grant through Digital Promise. So the Maker Learning Home cohort includes a 6-month professional learning collaboration experience, a $5,000 for your school to actualize your proposed Maker Learning project, and the design and development of a project guide to be published publicly and disseminated nationally. The cohort consists of monthly synchronous full cohort meetings and a one-to-one check-in session with the individual's organizations. Additionally, I believe Matt has the ability to add one colleague to participate in the cohort along with Mr. O'Reilly. The administration would like to offer their congratulations to Mr. O'Reilly for this recognition.
All right, well, congratulations. I didn't see his name in the attendee window, but congratulations. I look forward to a day when we can have recognitions in person again, but anyway, okay. Our next agenda item is a superintendent and district leadership team report. Dr. Pereira, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Peterson, and greetings and good evening to the board and staff and all those joining us tonight. I'd like to begin with a little bit of an overview of what's to come tonight in the Return to Learn. I want to give it kind of a summary of what's going to happen today and what we'll be presenting. We are a year into this pandemic and just kicked off our limited in-person learning. But like so many parents and families and students and educators and learning communities across Oregon and this country, each of us has been overwhelmed by the challenges that we faced. We have grown weary, frustrated, and numerous changes in guidelines and health metrics developed by our Oregon Health Authority, our Oregon Department of Education, the Oregon School Activities Association, and our governor's executive orders, sorry. A combination of these entities, as one parent coined it, is our alphabet soup of agencies. And as they've learned more about the virus, and certainly in an effort and an intent to ensure our safety, all have issued numerous and constantly changing guidelines, regulations, and directives over the last 12 months. As a school district, we've worked to communicate those changes as transparently and as quickly as possible. And in some cases, the constant change has led to confusion and frustration. We know that our families and our staff have shouldered many of those challenges during this pandemic, and we will be forever grateful to our families and their willingness to partner with us during this unprecedented time, and for their continued support and patience as we work together to the continuous storm of changes, not just together, but together during this pandemic. As a school district, we have continuously looked for ways and tools and levers and resources to get our students back in our buildings where they belong, back to a safe environment and to ensure the health and safety of all. On January the 28th, in the board meeting, the board directed the district to allow time for all staff members to have access to both doses of the COVID-19 vaccine before we could begin limited in-person to bring back. And tonight we'll share a little bit of an update on that in that process. In fact, we're already making progress on this. This week marks a milestone. There are some students back in our classrooms, and on March 1st, we began our limited in-person instruction with our elementary students in specialized programs. And the staff and students couldn't be happier in those programs right now. Next week, we began our limited in-person instruction at the secondary level. We also kicked off sports and activities on February 22nd and have already had our first round of competitions. Now, we are not where we want to be, nor are we comfortable with where we are. But to be fair, I think things are looking a little brighter for our learning community. And while we've learned a lot about this virus and we've followed health and safety metrics all along the way, the COVID-19 rates are trending in the right direction in our region. And we are now in a position to begin bringing back more students in a hybrid format, according to our metrics. We are looking ahead, both through a microscope and a telescope as a district. And tonight you will learn about some of those exciting changes. As a community, as our community's health and safety metrics continue to head in the right direction, that will allow us to gradually return safely. We know that our communities and our state and our country only thrives if our students have a fair and equal chance to gain knowledge, access, and opportunities and skills that are necessary to succeed. And again, tonight, you will learn how our leadership team collaborated and gathered input from learning communities of staff and students and parents and community leaders to design a system that will allow us to gradually and safely bring back our students and our staff, while also ensuring that the systems of support for our students' learning and their mental well-being is continuously improved. Tonight, you'll be presented with a plan that was developed based on the input of our learning communities of families, again, students, staff, and community leaders, who told us that if and when we brought our students back into our buildings, they wanted, one, for their students to keep their assigned teachers. Two, they wanted the secondary students to change classes during the day and not sit in one classroom. They wanted an alternative to having our students eat in their classrooms. They wanted us to offer and make sure we offer high school students an opportunity to participate in athletics and activities. And they also shared that our students needed to continue their support for their well-being through the daily advisory check-ins, and we agree. And we acknowledge that any system that's being recommended tonight or in the future must continue to adhere to the established safety protocols and communicable disease communication protocols. And it also requires ongoing flexibility, adaptability for future tweaks and guidelines, and for safe and healthy learning environment, as safety is always our priority. The hybrid model schedule that you will be presented with tonight fulfills all of the requests that I just highlighted. And at the same time, we realize that it is not perfect, but it does help to mitigate many of the health and safety concerns. It helps to meet the present guidelines and allows students an option to gradually return to in-person and to interact with their peers. You will also be presented with a proposed hybrid learning implementation calendar to gradually bring our students and staff back, and based on the guidelines we know of today. We will ask our board to vote on this change in calendaring. You will receive an overview again of the proposed elementary and secondary schedules throughout the presentation, which again includes feedback from our families. We listened and heard, and that allows many of our students to keep their assigned teachers unless that teacher is not returning to the classroom. Undoubtedly, this last year has been challenging for parenting, teaching, learning, and leading. But as we move forward, I ask that we continuously look and continuously seek ways to improve our instructional model, improve our communication, and sharing information for future changes for guidelines and protocols. We will always welcome advocacy, input, and feedback from our learning communities. For we know that the foundation of learning in this community is rooted in relationships. These are difficult times for all, and I believe it is especially true for our community's most precious resource, our students. They deserve a win. We want them to know that. We do see them. Their voices are welcome and that they matter. And we believe that the best way to let them know that is to offer each student an opportunity and options to return to the classroom where they learn best. And with that said, please know that we will continue to move as fast as we can, but as slow as we must to ensure time for all to reacclimate to a safe and healthy in-person learning environment. And as always, and I know I could speak for the board and staff, I wanted to extend my appreciation and thanks to our families and our staff members for their patience, for their continued flexibility, and especially their grace throughout this pandemic. And with that said, Lisa and John, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We have a presentation. It does come with an action item, Chair Peterson and board members, but we're happy to go through that and then perhaps make that action board item later. So if Sarah would like to bring up the presentation, we will share that. As
would it be possible for maybe John to present just so that I can capture the notes while you guys are speaking?
If we could, Sarah, I'd like, because I have my notes too, I don't want to miss many points. I'm
happy to.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
I'll do that and I'll just guess on my notes. Hang on one moment. Okay. I am sharing my screen and I will move this to present. I'm assuming that there's a better presentation here. Let me do this. All right. Everyone can see that?
Not quite yet, Lisa, but it's coming up. Now we can.
Okay, thank you. Again, we've had ongoing conversations with so many people that are responsible for putting together a comprehensive plan of return to learn. And most importantly, at the center of our decision making every day are our students. And that comes from getting the survey feedback and from others that are sharing in survey information and things. As you know, this is a collaboration of partnerships inside and outside of the school district, including transportation, food services, and each and every individual school that has a return to learn plan that will be posted as well. As we start with every board session and every time we meet, we do cover the COVID-19 dashboard. And so, John, would you mind sharing the latest on our metrics?
Certainly. Chair and directors, you're seeing a very positive pattern, and that positive pattern has continued since our peak at the beginning of November, middle of November. Currently, over the last 7 days, that's not reflected here. We've plateaued. So I anticipate that this graph will remain steady over the next week or two, which is good news for us as well. You will also see that we are well into the green on almost all of the metrics. So if you could, Lisa, let's advance to the next slide, please. Okay. These metrics put us firmly in the on-site and hybrid stage. Multnomah County right now has 85.5 per 100,000 cases. Clackamas 92.9. Our positivity rates are 3.7 and 3 respectively. And we have been actively planning for a very long time in waiting for this event to happen. This column puts us in a position to where we should be phasing elementary kids in particular back. And tonight you will see our plan for doing so. Okay.
James, would you like to update us on the vaccination numbers and what we've been prioritizing?
Absolutely. The process and schedule were subject to vaccine distribution adjustments and availability. With each new wave that was released, previous waves were still eligible to access an appointment. So in our wave 1, we had limited in person. In our K1, educators, operations, administrators. That first email went out on January 26th. In our wave 2, we had 2nd through 5th grade, First email went out on February 1st. Wave 3, middle school. That first email went out on February 4th. And on wave 4, we had a few iterations where high school and the remaining school staff. First email went out February 18th with the last one on March 1st. Also, active substitutes and coaches have been notified of their eligibility to schedule a vaccine. As of today, we have in the Tri-County vaccine update, we have 65,400 educators in the Tri-County areas that have been vaccinated, 40,000 public K-12 educators, 4,400 private K-12 educators, and about 21,000 early learning providers. So to date, with vaccinated with the first dose, approximately 36,848 Tri-County based educators, and another 4,150 have appointments, and another 3,950 appointments were just released. So it's roughly about 68% of the educators in the Tri-County areas that have been vaccinated to this point.
Thank you. So we have the good news that Superintendent Pereira mentioned is that we have started limited in person, and we're excited to say that Monday, March 1st, our elementary school limited in person began with a variety of our programs. Again, that's a 2-hour per day program, 4 days per week. And then actually today and tomorrow, our middle school and high school limited in-person staff and special program teachers are preparing their classrooms for next Monday, which is March 8th, where we have middle school and high school limited in person, which is going to begin. Again, that's a 2-hour and 4-day per week. And the vaccination opportunities were in line with the staff that are now part of this schedule.
Lisa, do you want questions in the middle of this, or do you want to get through it all and then get back to it?
We do have a pause after we go through a few things. Hopefully that's the right time. If that's, is that acceptable? All right. Then Tracy, I know that you've been working specifically with all of us on the elementary schedule. So let's talk about the hybrid options.
Good evening, everybody. Our elementary hybrid plan includes all students participating in online learning every morning, with hybrid students having the opportunity to attend 2 afternoons per week. So as you look at the timelines on this schedule, that morning session is from 8:30 to 11 o'clock on Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. And that time will be students logging into synchronous or live lessons with their teachers, similar to what they've been experiencing now, to have instruction in core content areas. The afternoon time is for the in-person students, and it's an extension of core content. There could be small group instruction, feedback from their teachers, interaction with peers. Online students during that time would continue to do applied learning activities, homework opportunities, wellness center, which is our music, PE, and specialist opportunities. So as you look at that schedule, our students are divided into 2 cohorts, a cohort A and a cohort B. So on Mondays and Tuesdays, again, all students would be participating online with their current teachers. Cohort A in the afternoon would come in person, while cohort B and all students that are choosing to stay online fully would be participating online. Our Wednesday schedule looks the same as it does now, with students logging in at 8:30 for a social emotional check-in time with their teacher, and then participating in applied learning for the afternoon, for the rest of the day. And then Thursday and Friday is just the flip-flopping of the cohort. So cohort A students would remain online for their afternoon time, and our cohort B students would have the opportunity to come in person. Throughout the day, there is opportunities built in for English language development, reading interventions, and special education services. And then this slide just provides an overview of some of the strengths that we see and some challenges that we see with this schedule. It's really, again, built on the feedback that we received in the survey from our elementary families in January, where a good portion of our families were interested in remaining online. But the biggest thing that we all heard was that people were really wanting to keep their current teachers. We heard that from teachers and we heard that from students and families. So that was a huge priority in our model. There is less time in this model for students to be required to follow some of the safety protocols of mask wearing, distancing, and some of the things that make school feel different in this environment. We also really wanted to make sure that we maintained a strong online learning component for all of our students. So we have students that will remain fully online if that's their family's choice for them. But even our hybrid students will be receiving a good portion of their instruction online, and we needed that core instruction to remain strong. The other thing I guess that I'll mention is that parents had expressed some concern over students eating together in classrooms, and this schedule allows us to have students safely eat at home. Some of the challenges that we recognize are with a partial day schedule that can create some childcare and transportation challenges for families. This is a shorter period of in-person instructional time than what we have shared with our community previously. And so that change we recognize can be a challenge, but we do believe that the adjustments we've made have been in the best interest of our students and in response to the feedback that we've received.
Thank you, Tracy. And again, as we know that our focus is always on the center of our students and the families and listening, we do understand that there are challenges and information that we need to present about our staff, both certified, classified, administrative. So James, would you like to address some of the strengths and challenges of the hybrid program around our staffing that you've been overseeing?
So earlier in the fall, well, I guess it was in December, prior to spring winter break, and recently after winter break, I had an opportunity to speak with many staff members that had concerns around their own medical concerns around ADA. And so we set up what is called interactive meetings, where people were able to share with me and one of our HR colleagues some of the challenges around their own medical concerns, or if they had a spouse or a family member, a parent or a child that had some medical considerations, or they had some concerns around childcare. So we set up these interactive meetings. We set up time to talk to these individual staff members, licensed and classified staff, around what those considerations were. And at that point in time, we were not aware that the vaccine was going to be available, that we were still in strong comprehensive distance learning. The metrics were still in the extreme category. And so when we met with staff, we talked about some of the challenges associated with their potential inability to return. So under ADA, we provided what we believe under the circumstances were reasonable accommodations, which are adjustments or modifications provided by the employer to enable people with disabilities to enjoy equal employment opportunities. And so if reasonable accommodation is needed and requested by that individual with a disability to either apply for a job, perform a job, or enjoy benefits and privileges of employment, the employer must provide it unless it would pose an undue hardship. So, based on the information that we have, we scheduled meetings with, I don't know, about 175 or so folks to really kind of talk about kind of their potential inability to return. So during those initial interactive meetings that we had, we were in the process of gathering medical notes from some of our employees. We talked about some of the challenges around childcare for some employees, around some of the concerns about high risk family members or children. And so we basically had chatted about, what we could do to help support them. And since we were in that comprehensive distance learning environment, we had talked about continuing with that. Certainly, if we're going to now start pivoting into most recently, when we looked at our limited in-person and we started looking at our metrics and they started to improve quite a bit, We started getting into that almost moderate category, which does show that, we could come back in a hybrid model at this point in time. We talked to the instructional leadership team that based on some of the input that they received from our families around wanting to have teachers with their students, the instructional model around a hybrid schedule for elementary and then middle and high school was developed. And based on that model, then Human Resources was asked to reach out to different staff members to really set up a second interactive meeting based on the information that we had at this time. So started interactive meetings once again 2 days ago, met with a couple of staff members yesterday, met with 8 more. Today, I think we had 13 meetings. Tomorrow I have 15 meetings set up and then moving into next week. So, so what we are starting to talk to employees about is that based on the instructional model, we want to at least provide as much flexibility and grace within the schedule that we currently have. And in these models, elementary, middle, and high school, we actually have students that will be still getting synchronous instruction online in the morning. And so for our staff members who have considerations for childcare, who have considerations for their own medical considerations or worried about family members, actually having to be able to teach from at the building or at home would be something that they could do. But if they were not able to come back into the building in the afternoon, so if they were not able to return, we presented an opportunity for staff to access what is called FMLA, or Family and Medical Leave Act, or OFLA, the Oregon Family Leave Act. And at that point in time, it's protected leave of absences for 60 days that provides insurance and job protection. And while the leave is unpaid, the employee has the ability to supplement any unpaid leave with their own accrued sick leave and or personal leave. So, as we're talking through with employees, if they had their own medical situation or they were worried about a family member and they qualified under OFLA and Fmla, they would be able to utilize those leaves. And then certainly if a staff member was concerned about childcare, they would have access to the Oregon Sick Child Leave under OFLA. And for leave under the Oregon Sick Child Leave, unfortunately, that expires March 31st of 21, unless the Bureau of Labor and Industry is able to reinitiate the Oregon Sick Child Leave Act. So employees have been notified that they have options, and we are talking through with our employees about what options are available if OFLA or Fmla or Oregon Sick Child Leave Act. And all of this is between whenever we pivot for hybrid to the end of this current academic year. And some people are, are requesting leave, and some people are able to come back based on their ability to get the vaccines and so forth.
Thank you. Again, this does that information, James, I'm certain that it covers elementary, middle, and high school. So we're going to move on to the schedule for secondary hybrid, which Carly Gay, I'd like you to address this overview of the schedule that will work for both middle school and high school. But we know that we will be sharing more details at the school level.
Good evening. Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, board chair and members of the board. So as you can see, this schedule is a very high level overview, but let me kind of walk you through what it means. Similar to the elementary, students will continue to receive their total instructional time throughout the day. However, it is chunked out differently to accommodate students who remain fully in distance learning, or what we call EGBSD, in the morning, as well as provide for some in-person learning for those who choose the hybrid option in the afternoon. So in the mornings, all students are online, whether they are hybrid or remaining in EGBSD. and that's for both the middle and high school. You'll notice the times are slightly different for busing and also the rotation of classes. So they will continue to rotate between their periods in the morning schedules on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with their advisory lesson happening on Wednesday as it does right now. Then in the afternoon, for those students who are in hybrid, the cohort A students will attend in person on Monday and Tuesday and rotate between their teachers to receive in-person instruction. The classes that they take in the afternoon will be an extension of the learning that they received in the morning. So and there's some specific examples around which periods that they will basically continue to work on in the afternoon in the in-person. For this cohort B students, they will stay at home doing asynchronous instruction, including independent work, group work, and other lessons prepared by their teachers. So while they will still be at home, and they will be doing participating in instruction prepared by their teachers. And then the reverse will be true on Thursday and Friday. For the students who remain in EGBSD, they will attend the online in the mornings, and then again in the afternoons, they will participate in the asynchronous instruction provided by their teachers. In all of the cohorts, they will rotate when they are in person, they will rotate between their classes and see their classroom teachers for the time that they are on campus to facilitate that additional learning that will take place from their content teachers, which is a change from a previous iteration that we thought about. So we're really pleased that they'll be able to come on site and see their teachers. And then, as Lisa said, what the details of those schedules will be shared at the school level by your administrators. So some of the strengths of this are that students will be able to be physically transitioning from one class to the next, as I already mentioned, and see their classroom teachers. Also, the instruction will be aligned for the EGBSD students and then the students who attend in person. So the pacing will stay the same regardless of whether you're at home or in the classroom. Students will keep their same course schedules. We don't have to change their course schedules and reassign them to different teachers or different classes. Also, the students remaining on campus will benefit from athletics and activities by coming in the afternoon and then being able to stay for their after school activities. Probably one of the biggest strengths is that it provides an opportunity for social interactions where our students have been so isolated doing their classwork from their homes. They'll be able to engage with one another while physically distancing and masks on, but nevertheless start to practice some of those social skills that they maybe haven't had an opportunity to practice over the last year. And then finally, we heard from many parents that there were concerns around how food would be distributed. So similar to elementary school, the students will have access to meals provided by the district in meal boxes offered on Wednesdays that they will be able to use for an entire week. Certainly some of the challenges are that the in-person instruction is a shorter period of time, and it breaks out the instruction from time in the morning, same class, to then seeing that teacher in person in the afternoon. So it can, the way the instruction is delivered can be a little challenging, but that is how we could figure out how to accommodate both our at-home students and our in-person students. And then when students are at home, they're doing more of the asynchronous instruction versus synchronous online in front of their teacher. But I do want to be clear that teachers are preparing instruction for the entire period of time that they have always been providing instruction. It's just that it is split out differently between the morning and afternoon hours.
Thank you. We always try to give an update about the reminders of our safe and healthy guidelines. And we want to make sure that Michelle is able to update us that. Just a reminder about I want to go back if I can, that we really did hear from our parents that and from students, trust me, when we were asking them, that they wanted to see their classroom teachers and they wanted to be taught by their teachers of their content. That's very important. And also, staying and being there at the end of the day allows people to transition right to their athletics and right to their activities. And so there isn't this opportunity that so they have to go home and then come back for those benefits, as we said before. And again, the importance for the food service and allowing full 5-day options. So with that, Michelle, I'd like to move on to the exposures and our reminders of how we have different cohorts and how we handle appropriately who ends up being affected by that.
All right, thank you, and good evening, everyone. Covering on this slide, we want to cover the responses to potential exposures, and there's quite a bit of scripted guidance that has helped us figure out exactly what needs to happen. And so one of the most important pieces will be contact tracing. There are multiple data sources that we'll be collecting at the school level, that we've already started implementing those processes. That's one of the nice things about starting with students and staff this week, is we're getting a chance to practice those things and find out what's working, what do we need to adjust. So we're collecting data like entry and exit points. We can collect that data as students and staff come through the doors using badges. There are daily symptom surveys that go out. Parents, I'm sure you've already seen them, as well as staff that are required as part of the RSSL guidance. Synergy also has a nice contact tracing tool that will help us when we do need to do some contact tracing, have a starting point to be able to quickly, eliminate which students would be part of an impacted cohort. And the training for staff for how to do that has already been rolled out. And so folks are putting that in place this week, and we'll continue to refine those processes. Our goal is to make sure that when we do have a confirmed case, that we're ready to go. We have the information ready for our MESD team to support us in decision making, so that we can make quick decisions and get information out quickly. So those systems are already in place. Other areas where we've increased capacity, there's been an increase in health assistant hours. Our health assistants will play a key role in communicating with our school nurses and helping with contact tracing to make sure we're gathering information quickly and getting it where it needs to go. We also have care room attendant positions. Those postings are up. We're starting to hire. The RSSL guidance requires that we have a room that we call a care room, where if students are showing signs of symptoms that are related to COVID, that there's a chance for them to be isolated from others, so that we're containing any sort of exposure. And then parents would be expected to come quickly and pick up students, have those plans ready as part of working together to make sure that we mitigate the spread of COVID and other communicable diseases. And the MESD, whom we partner with for our school nurses and medical guidance, there's always been a communicable disease protocol that's really founded with 3 parts. One is prevention, then looking at control and our responses. And in the case of how we've been reopening schools, the prevention is really looking at our health and safety protocols, which are extensive in the RSSL guidance. And those prevention pieces include things like face coverings, hand washing and sanitizing, 35 square feet per person with 6 feet of social distance, which does significantly limit the number of students that we can have in a classroom and has a lot to do with what we've been able to do with our schedules. The other thing is, when we're looking at control for the spread of COVID, we're looking at contact tracing, and again, having efficient systems. We've worked very closely with our school nurses to make sure that there's clear cross-agency communication, so that everybody knows who to talk to, what information to send, and we can get a quick turnaround on decisions from our MESD communicable disease nurse team. They do have a team of medical professionals that will be making decisions, and that's our response part. They'll be directing isolation timelines. They will be directing quarantine timelines, and schools will have clear communication protocols to make sure that affected people get the right communication. So those systems are ready to go and being rolled out in schools. I would just add that, when it comes to the sharing information about, who has COVID or any impacts, we do need to follow the HIPAA and FERPA guidance. And so if there is a case in a school, it doesn't mean everybody's going to know, because we want to respect that confidentiality. That's part of our process as well.
Thank you, Michelle. And I think what's important for us to all remember is that prevention of the health and safety protocols. We've been fortunate to have the opportunity to be vaccinated with our both shots and vaccinations, and the health and safety protocols were in place to keep and prevent prior to that. So here, John, I'd like us to go over the hybrid calendar, which will be an action item later in the agenda.
Thank you. Happy to do so. What you're going to see over the next 2 slides is a phase-in process K through 12. We're going to start with the elementary school. I also want to, there's some other baseline needs that or knowledge you should have. Cohort A, which will be Mondays and Tuesdays, is the odd addresses in our district, students that live in odd number addresses, and same for apartments, odd number apartments, however that works. That's how we're dividing the cohorts. Cohort B, even addresses, Thursdays and Fridays, and those who choose to stay in CDL will remain in CDL, but they'll be connecting with their school directly. Under this plan, also, Wednesdays remain the same. We will have an advisory in the morning. Students will have asynchronous learning, and then teachers will have prep and other things that we've been doing throughout the year. Now let's look at the week. One other comment. This proposal is right after spring break. One of the reasons that we chose to go with that, especially since we're starting the littles first, is that continuity of instruction. If you start K1 before spring break, you give them a week off and you bring them back, you're kind of starting over. So for the week of March 29th, there's no school for K through 5 teachers on Monday and Tuesday. That'll be teacher planning, follow-up, and health and safety training. The cohort B that week, April 1st, K through 1st grade, begins on Thursday and Friday, with EGBSD continuing for all other students. All right, now we move on to April, and the phasing in continues. On the week of April 5th, you'll see that cohort A, the K through 1, attends in person on Monday and Tuesday. That'll be their first days attending in person. Cohort B, K through 1, will be online that Monday and Tuesday. Thursday and Friday, grades 2 through 5 will start, cohort B. K through 1 cohort B will continue on that Thursday and Friday. They will have started the previous week. Grades 6 through 12 remain online. Then we move to the week of April 12th. K through 5 cohort A attends Monday and Tuesday. In other words, all kids elementary cohort A will be in school those 2 days. The K through 5 cohort B, same thing, Thursday and Friday, all elementary students in school or online, and that ends the phase-in process for the elementary level. You also want to look at April 14th. That is a grading day. It's the end of quad 3, which is particularly important at the high school level, or secondary level, pardon me. The K through 5 cohort attends Monday and Tuesday. K through 5 cohort B attends Thursday and Friday. That Thursday and Friday, April 15th and 16th, will be the days that secondary educators get in, set up, get ready for hybrid, and they'll get some refresher training for safety as well. Starting the week of the 19th, after quad 3 is over, grading is finished, we will begin K-12. Cohort A will be in class. That includes 6th through 12th grade. Monday and Tuesday, cohort B would be online. On Thursday and Friday that week, cohort B attends Thursday and Friday, K through 12, with cohort A online. And after that, our phase in is finished and we continue moving forward.
So as we are reviewing, and I will allow for some questions because we've covered a lot, there are a lot of benefits and challenges and details that we've laid out today for primarily our students and also for our staff as we begin our return. The benefits, again, are that we want to establish a back to school routine, and we want to utilize the natural transitions that we have already in place, our quads, our grading periods, etc. We also utilize those natural breaks to ensure that student learning stays on pace and that we aren't making adjustments to the scope and sequence of the end of the quarter and finalizing those formative periods of time and starting fresh in the next area time, and especially after spring break. So starting hybrid at the secondary level avoids that loss of instructional time at the end of quad 3 when we wouldn't want to restart after the quad, after the end of quad 3. This also provides enough time for families to make adjustments to their schedules. So we're slowly moving this out. We are continuing with limited in person and giving you the time periods of when we're addressing the shifts if people and students are choosing a hybrid approach. And then as many families have already seen and heard from their middle schools and high schools, that forecasting and course completion for next year, because we are planning for next year as well and wanting that strong school routine so we come back ready to roll in the fall, takes place now at the end of this quad, and then we would be moving into the instruction after the fourth quad as well. The challenges is that the hybrid schedule is implemented after spring break. It's not a fast, but it is slow to go fast. Additional details, as John has mentioned, who are cohort A and cohort B, and when do they come? Cohort A, odd addresses, Monday, Tuesday. Cohort B, even addresses, Thursdays, Fridays. And then again, our comprehensive distance learning plan, which is EGBSD, continues to be an option for those families who prefer to remain home. This continues our transportation for those that need it to come to and from our schools, and supporting those meal programs as well and getting out to the communities. Meals will continue to be provided to families, as Carla mentioned, on Wednesdays will be a week of that. Also, we want to remind families that we want students to be ready for school online and at school. And so please bring your devices and make sure that they're charged. So we have a pause here. This isn't the end, but if we wanted to address some questions, I know that you probably have been keeping track of those and want to cover any now.
Lisa, my question is what's coming? What's left to come?
What's coming? Well, we have some athletics,
okay.
And we have
Okay, so we're specifically in the academic instructional
Correct.
window of this discussion. Board, what are your questions?
How do you want to do this, Chair Peterson? I have a couple, so I can do one and then bounce to let someone else, and I've just kept track of my questions. My first one is around the surveys. I think you mentioned, Lisa, that January was approximately the time that families did their surveys. As things have changed, it's been a continuing evolving scenario. Were parents given an opportunity to say, I thought I wanted this style, now I want something else? So how frequently is that survey and the information been updated? I see John shaking his head.
Yep.
Yes, and Tim is happy to chime in as well, because our research evaluation and assessment person has been great at surveying and giving pivot tables. So we did have surveys, and then we are also in the process of approaching our elementary students, families again, to be certain, and we'll be doing that. And we are running the secondary survey right now, which will extend over this weekend, so we can see if and how our secondary school students want to be served. Currently, we have 50% of our comprehensive schools covered with getting back to us, and about 85% of Springwater Trail John or Tim, would you like to add to that?
Tim, you here? If not, I can add to it. We are right now at about 46% return. We believe it's 50% because there's some data cleanup that we need to do. Oftentimes, parents superimpose a student number incorrectly, so we're cleaning that data to make sure. So from the secondary level, that's our return rate. It's strikingly similar when you look at the district-wide numbers to the survey we sent to elementary families in January. Right now, roughly a 60-40 split, but only 50% have returned. There are some buildings that are much higher and much lower, just depending on the building as well. To explain the elementary piece just a bit further, we sent a more detailed description of the current schedule proposal to families, I believe, Monday or Tuesday this week, so that they could make a more educated choice at the elementary level on whether they wanted to change their mind or not. So I know buildings are hearing, I just don't know how many they're hearing from.
So when do they have to make that decision, John?
We want it sooner rather than later. We have in the original survey, and please do not quote me on this, Director Howitt, we gave them a March 15th. You can't change after that date deadline, and I think that's the same one now.
I do have the numbers.
As just a brief follow-up on that, because this is a core concern I've heard from a lot of secondary families, is about how to respond to it when they don't understand the logistics of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very much a chicken egg situation, I think, for the administrative team trying to plan the logistics, but also for the families who are trying to plan their lives and their students' experiences. So that deadline was communicated, I think, for Friday, tomorrow. Is that, am I inaccurate in that?
No, you're correct. However, we wanted to extend that, and we are asking that the principals send that out to extend it. However, we are seeing the return rate of where I said about 50%. And we also will be sending out again a coordinated approach to a video where the 3 districts, Centennial, Reynolds, and GBSD, where we are trying to give insights to what really a hybrid approach would look like in the classroom. And then tonight's schedules would give them the overview of that. Just for an example, GBSD fully online, it's looking as though 1,000 students at the middle school and would like to stay online, and 1,700 are looking at the hybrid. And then at the, sorry, yeah.
That's all secondary, Lisa.
Yeah, that's all secondary. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, could you restate those numbers? 1,000 online and 1,700 hybrid?
Or do it by percentage. 37% are looking for fully online and 63% for hybrid.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah, this is Matt. I have a question. This is for James on the FMLA question. So you breezed through that pretty quickly. So let me understand. Based upon the hybrid model, an employee, if for some reason they were medically fragile and qualified for FMLA, they would actually work the hybrid the online portion during the day, but would not work in the facility for the 3.25 hours a day or whatever was scheduled. So does that mean approximately 30% of their, I guess, wages would be subject to FMLA, and then therefore their leave? Am I reading, or did I hear that correctly?
No, what I had stated, I thought I had stated, was that if an employee is not able to return to the building, they would take FMLA or OFLA leave for those 60 days, which is considered unpaid, but then they can access their sick leave and their personal leave during that time.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. Thank you for the clarification.
And do we want to continue the conversation at this point on, how we are managing our staff that are immunocompromised, or are we still saving that for a bit later?
No, I think that this is where it makes the most sense.
All right, well, then I would just like a brief overview. So, for those of, in the audience that don't know, we have received over 100 emails, or I'm guessing now, approximately 100, we haven't counted, emails from staff, teachers, claiming that we are not providing appropriate accommodation for immunocompromised staff. And I, based on conversations that we had in the past, it was just stated outright that that we would be able to accommodate those teachers if there was medical notes. And it seems like that might not be happening. So could you give us an update on what is going on? Where is this concern coming from? And where do we go from here?
So I will state that in our first interactive meetings, we had multiple meetings with staff, not just around immunocompromised staff that had medical doctor's notes for themselves, but there were concerns around spouses and children with medical issues, as well as childcare issues. Through that first interactive meetings, myself and an HR colleague met with employees and discussed what options were available at the time based on the information that we had. And at the time, we were strictly in comprehensive distance learning, as well as looking at the metrics and being in the extreme category. So what we had stated, though, is that, we don't necessarily know all the information based on what we know at the time. Here's what we can offer. And then since that time, there's been opportunities for the vaccine. There's been opportunities for the metrics to relax a little bit, as well as there's been opportunities for kind of a new look at the kind of instructional model that would benefit our students. And so based on that information and conversations we had as a district leadership team, then, human resources basically needed to schedule a second round of interactive meetings with employees. And so I'm not quite sure the number of emails that board members have received, but we are in the process of working through individual meetings with employees around their abilities to actually physically return and what those circumstances are, whether they're medically fragile or they have concerns around family members or their issues with childcare. So we're working through all of those different issues with individual employees. And we talked about providing as much flexibility and grace within the rules. And I think I explained a little bit about, OFLA and Fmla and the Oregon sick child leave, and that everything was going to be temporary between whenever we pivoted to a hybrid model and the remainder of this year, that nobody was going to be, jobless, that we were going to make sure that we were going to get through this academic year and then be able to move forward again. But it was based on the information that we had at the time and that things were changing rapidly within this COVID environment.
Thank you. And one thing I hear is that this is before vaccines, but even with vaccines, pregnant women, there could be complications. People that are immunocompromised, that doesn't mean that they can't, even with vaccination, spread it to other people within their household. And, from the emails that we have received, it seems like, people are really concerned. I do not, feel comfortable, right, receiving 100 emails from teachers begging for their lives, which is essentially how I read that. Please don't let us go back. Please, don't let us decide between our career and, having to go back in our lives. And I think that is very complicated what's going on. So you're saying right now that you are still in negotiations. Is that where we're at to see if certain vulnerable teachers and their families, if they'll have to go back, or has it been decided yet that they will have to go back?
So 2 points. We are not in negotiations. We're involved in interactive meetings with individual employees based on their circumstances. And the district is not requiring anybody to go back if they don't feel like it's appropriate or safe for them to go back. But we are giving them options on OFLA and Fmla leave for the remainder of the year. But nobody is requiring staff to go back if they don't feel they're comfortable or feeling safe that they can go back.
So does that mean that financially they are taken care of as well? Because that's a huge thing. We are a major employer. And if people need to pay their rent, right? And if we're saying, oh, well, you don't have to go back, but you don't get paid, is that really an option? So what are we really offering?
Again, we are trying to be as flexible as we can under the guidelines and the rules of the law. And so, you know, we are talking to individual employees about their ability. I mean, if it's a situation that an employee has childcare considerations, you know, they can take OFLA and Fmla leave, and technically it is unpaid, but they do have the ability to use their, you know, accumulated sick leave and their personal leave. And then again, insurance is not impacted during that time. And it is between whenever we pivot for hybrid and the remainder of the year. But the current hybrid model that we're looking at, it does require staff to be with the students in the schools.
And
Sure.
Jane, if I could interject a little bit, Director Stowers, a letter did go to many teachers, I think all of the teachers recently, that had inaccurate information, which bred a lot of fear. That letter was shared with me and other administrators by teachers that I know, and it upset them. And it wasn't that they agreed with it, they were offended and took it as, and knew many of their colleagues took it as accurate. It created unnecessary fear. I can tell you that for teachers to return, you look at just the layers of protection that we've put in and the research behind that. You have your own immune systems. Just because you're exposed doesn't mean you're going to develop the disease, but there is that risk. So you keep socially distant. And then you wear a mask, and that's a layer. And then we continue to have 6 foot of distance in the classrooms for teachers and students to stay protected. We continue to clean. We make sure our HVAC systems are monitoring the air and turning over air at an appropriate rate. When you put all of those interventions in place, particularly our own immune systems, the chances, if we continue to stay diligent on following those guidelines, that a disease will be transferred in the building are very minuscule, but it will happen. We know that. But we also know from research across the country that we can do this successfully. And it is important that we do so. And we have paid a ton of attention to make sure that we will.
So I'm going to hope that the information that they're banking on is incorrect. It's hard to say, right, when we've received 100 emails.
I disagree with you adamantly because I was part of those meetings. I saw the incorrections. I read the incorrections.
And what were the incorrections? Could you speak to them in this meeting?
It was some of what you were saying here, that we were going to force them to come back and not enable them to make that choice according to the law, family medical leave, et cetera. That was one of the key points.
Well, to be able to as we are an employer, and this is part of their livelihood, people just cannot leave their job.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. Be clear, you know, with the public and with our teachers of what we're offering and what we weren't, because in previous meetings we had said that teachers with the doctor's note were able to, you know, we were able to make appropriate accommodations. And then now they're saying that it has changed. And so what is clear? Are everyone with the doctor's notes, are we saying everyone that has a doctor's notes at this moment that, you know, is immunocompromised or their family is, we will make appropriate accommodations? Are we allowing that? And
I will tell you that I've watched HR follow what's required by the law to have the interactive meetings and make those decisions, and those will be done.
And I will also state that, again, we're only about 15 to 20 meetings into this. And so I'm not quite sure where there's 100 staff members that are concerned about their safety around those doctor's notes. Again, we're meeting with staff for various reasons, and that is one of the reasons why we're meeting with them. But there are other staff that we're meeting, both licensed and classified, that we have to make reasonable accommodation if it doesn't provide an undue hardship on the school district. So we are following the guidelines of the law. But again, in these meetings, we are clear with employees. We are trying to figure things out because things are changing with COVID. And so when we met with folks in December and January, it was different than it is now. And therefore, with the different hybrid model that's in place and with the opportunity for vaccines, and that we do have to talk about what are the potential accommodations that we could provide our employees. And again, as much grace and flexibility where we can, but we have to make sure that we're following the law. So I was not privy to the 100 emails, but I have had staff reach out to me and say, that they didn't necessarily agree with the content that was in those emails. And so, we have been very clear with staff, if they have concerns about getting the vaccine, or if they've had concerns about, their ability to return, that they need to reach out to us and have those conversations with us. And we're continuing that as
First, just a courtesy note, please mute your mic if you're not speaking. Or Mr. Hugh, a follow-up question or a clarification though, when you talk about extending grace, did I hear you correctly that you're affording access to sick leave banks due to medical vulnerability? Is that accurate?
Well, as far as sick leave banks, both the licensed and the classified units have those. And the licensed folks, they have a committee that looks at their sick leave banks, but it's usually for those that need an extended leave due to a pretty serious medical issue. With the classified folks, if somebody's exhausted all their sick leave, and it could be based on a doctor's note, they may allow the district to have employees access that sick leave bank. So it is something that we, if and when the time comes, we will be working with the GBA and the OSCA on that. But what we stated is that employees have access to their individual sick leave. So if they have accrued sick leave over the course of several years and they have not utilized that, they have access to that, again, up to the 60 days. So while OFLA and Fmla are actually unpaid, if they have the accrued sick leave, or they can use their 2 or 3 personal leave days, they actually have access to be able to utilize that and help to offset the unpaid portion. But again, insurance will be, they are able to access insurance during that time.
Peterson, may I interject one piece on this? In that we have not violated a contract or gone back on words. I think you've been a part of this district long enough, and so have I, to know that any of those things would be put into writing in an MOU with our associations. And so that in itself, when you look at the letter that was shared, and I actually talked to the president of GBA today, Rhett Hyman, who's I know on this call as well, that letter was not endorsed by the association, although it shared that, but there was some incorrect information in that letter. And again, any of those things truly would have had to been worked out in the MOU. We did not have one. And I cannot utilize taxpayer dollars for things that do not qualify under the laws in which we must respect and we must abide by. I cannot do that. And as empathetic as I can be with individuals and their situations, I also am required to follow the guidelines of the law. And I can assure you we will do that. If you want to do something else, then let me know and I'll talk to Brian Hungerford, who's our legal advice. But right now we are following the letter of the law of what is occurring, what's happening. We are not anti-teacher. We are not wanting people to come to work because they're medically fragile. But we also are bound to not put this district in a hardship as well. And so we have to weigh both, and we're trying to be as flexible as we can, but ensuring that we're still meeting the letter of the law. And again, I think if you don't know anything else about me, I'm following the rules.
And I just want to thank staff. I think staff, you have been doing a great job, and I don't want this to be a reflection of you or your work. And I understand following the letter of the law. And I also understand, people's personal health care and concerns. And it is really prioritizing the safety of all staff that we are, when these concerns come up, to really look at them and take them seriously. And sometimes even when following, the law to, perfectly, that there are still individuals that are higher risk and can as well, expose family and loved ones to higher risk as well. And I think that is something that during your negotiations to please take into consideration. And if you have not received a lot of the concerns from the teachers, please check our emails and really look at those, because there are some people out there that are very struggling within our district, and that would be important to pay close attention to.
John, I had a question for you related to the metrics. In a previous work session, I think the state epidemiologist, maybe I'm citing your source incorrectly, but it was you that reported on it, were concerned about a February bump in cases, and it looks like we avoided that, at least locally. Is that?
Yes, and that was an OHSU data
OHSU,
analyst.
okay.
And that presentation was about, he was correlating past behavior with metrics in an interesting way. And you're right, we did not see the bump that he had predicted. To me, that means people were paying attention and behaving as they should. If they hadn't, you know how diseases transfer, they have to have a host. If you don't have a host, it means you're following the guidelines and it's not transferring. So I think Oregon is doing a pretty good job.
And then I see 85.5 and 92.9 case counts in Multnomah County and Clackamas County respectively, and that is a week old now information.
Yes.
Okay.
Remember how those numbers are arrived?
It's a
at
2 week. It's a 2 week picture, right?
14 days.
Okay. So I'm going to throw this on there to make sure, because I know transparency has been a frustration, and I don't think it's lack of transparency nearly as much as it's been. This is from me as an individual board member, as it has been how much the guidance has shifted and expectations have shifted. But we've been following this same general metric breakdown for at least since December, when the governor made her order. Okay. We're on path to under 50. And so we're going to spend a lot of time here talking about hybrid, but we are cruising toward fully in person. That's what our metrics are telling us. So we're working through, anyway, we're working through this conversation, but we've got to see that we're months out, max months out from meeting metrics for a full return to in-person learning. And we would not, this is my position, we would of course expect that we would need staff in buildings in order to facilitate education. So I feel my sense is this is rooted in genuine fear. I'm not dismissing that. I think those fears are reasonably and very responsibly addressed through safety protocols that are in place. And I think really this is a test run for our inevitable future of kids in person fully. So however we're getting there, that's what this conversation is for, in my perspective. I know that instructional time is reduced. I understand that fully as a parent of 6 digital learners in our district. This is not about instructional quality for my kids who are fully supported. For kids who are experiencing hardship and the kids that we're not seeing, I think absolutely academic recovery is part of this equation. It is not in my home. What this is fully about is rehearsing the steps that are going to allow them to return to normalcy in a safe way, fully in person. So that's the conversation that I'm having right now. I want everybody to understand my lens as we're talking about this. And it sounds like our metrics are really pointing us in that direction. Are there other questions from the board?
Yes, there are. I have a couple, Blake, from the presentation. I wanted to go back and I think clarify on Matt's question that he asked. Again, recognizing that Mr. Hugh has said that we are operating within grace as well as the legal aspects of what we have to do. If a teacher is unable to return during the hybrid for the 2.5 hours a day, it's all or nothing. They can't, then there's Mr. Hugh, they can't do the online learning and split it with another teacher. Is that not an option? It's either you're there or you're not there. Is that?
So the challenge with that, Director Howitt, is that in that model, if a teacher is working with a group of students in the morning online, and then if we have to hire somebody to teach in the afternoon, it's going to be a different teacher. And so within what we've heard from our families is that, having the same teacher is important, and that would pose an undue hardship on the district to try to have to hire folks to teach just in one portion of the day and making sure they have the right credentials to do it. So we do need people to actually be able to be back in our schools to work with kids during the time where the kids are in school. If that's not the case, then we feel like we need to be able to hire substitutes to fill that portion of the school day, both in the morning and the afternoon session.
Okay, so that kind of, that's sort of another question then as well. But I do want to bring up, we have all received many, many, many emails. And I did read a high percentage of them. I won't say that I read all of them, but I read a lot of them. Many of them were letters that were in support of their colleagues. They were not 100 people that said they can't return. There were, like you said, Mr. Hugh, 15 or so that you have had conversation with. So we've received a lot of emails where they were sent in support of colleagues. So they weren't a lot of people that were saying they couldn't return. It still seems as if there isn't a way to do, and stop me if I'm flexing into your area because you are operations and I am not, that if a teacher cannot return, we are faced with having a sub for that entire time. And, just how that would work, and perhaps in some very rare cases, a family that wants to have the same teacher that they've had, that may not be the option. If the option is to get kids returned to the beginnings into the classroom, as Director Peterson said, to get moving in that direction, then we work with what we have to make sure that things are as safe as we can and work with the very few. The percentage is fairly small. How many total staff do we have right now, and approximately the percentage of people that are inquiring about having to do another flexible type of work environment?
So I have about 50 meetings scheduled.
And is that 15 or 50?
50.
50, so
Not
50.
just our-
Okay, I heard that as 15, so 50. All right.
And they're not necessarily only licensed staff, they're licensed and classified staff, and they're more than just personal medical situations. There's other aspects and reasons around childcare and around some other issues around spouses and parents and living conditions as well. So we're working with, multiple people for various reasons.
Okay. And then on a similar vein, there was mention of the care room attendant and needing to hire people to do that. So what kind of positions are those? And what if there's no care needed? What does that person do? What is that person being hired to do?
Thank you, Director Howitt. Very good question. The Superintendent Pereira authorized these temporary positions for as long as they're needed according to RSSL guidance, or 6-hour positions at each building. Their primary responsibility is to supervise the room where students will be isolated if they're exhibiting symptoms. They will, of course, make contact with parents to come get kids. They're going to be that one providing that service. When students are not there, they're going to help us with contact tracing because that is quite a detailed job in itself. So we're going to be able to use their services in the main office to fulfill all the other expectations related to the disease. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does answer that question. Thank you.
These are
Thank you.
classified employees and considered like health assistants or what we call range 10 positions. So they're similar to what our health assistants at our elementary and our middle schools would be. And these are folks that are going to be just in those care rooms during the time to help support the building with health and safety and contact tracing.
Okay.
This is Matt. I do have one follow-up question, and I apologize I missed this earlier, but there was a reference to a letter that was going around. At first, I got the impression that was through the district, but later conversation, it sounds like that letter was not from the district. So where was that letter originating from? That has caused this consternation.
That letter was supposedly from the GBA executive leadership team.
Okay, but you just said that it was not endorsed by the GBA. So was that or was that not?
It was not sent by the GBA. It was circulated, from what I understand in my conversation, and I think Mr. Hyman might be on this call as well, that it was circulated without their endorsement. And so that's what I'm sharing.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
And then I have another question because I haven't really heard it addressed in some of this, and we've used the similar conversation in talking about staff that is requesting support because of medically fragile environment, and then talking about childcare as well. One of the things I thought was available through either the CARES Act or one of the other alphabet soups was that teachers, first responders, healthcare professionals had priority access to childcare, had other options that maybe weren't available during a normal scenario. So is that something that I'm misunderstanding, or are there other options? And are we just talking about childcare because it's a short part of a day, or are we talking about a medically fragile childcare?
We are, I believe, if I understand your question, Director Howe, we are talking about regular childcare offered through community providers.
Yep.
So are teachers, first responders, and healthcare folks supposed to get priority access to childcare, and can champions add more people? They're using our buildings. They do have students. So if we talk to them about adding more.
Oh, I keep interrupting you, Director Howe.
That's okay. That's right. You're good at that. They're good. You can.
Thank you for pointing that out. We have had a series of conversations with champions to prep them for potential expansion, depending on the number of people who enroll. They have told us that they are. We understand how to make that happen. And they've done a lot of, from what I understand from them, a lot of behind the scenes work to make sure that they have enough employees with their certifications re-upped so that they can expand quickly if necessary.
Mr. Hugh, I'm going to go back to that personal leave, sick leave, and I think I used the wrong phrase initially with the bank. Sounds like that's an association pot. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I get each individual employee, for instance, over the course of my years in education, there is allocations of 10 sick leave days per year. So over the course of 30 years, and if you don't utilize them, they accrue over time. And so an individual employee can use his or her accrued sick leave to help offset this unpaid OFLA and FMLA. And not only could you use your sick leave, accrued sick leave, you could use your personal leave if you had not used it. So each individual has their own somewhat bank of accrued sick leave over time. Some people actually use it on a regular basis and maybe do not have access to, but in our collective bargaining agreement with our licensed staff, they have 10 per year. So during the course of their time, they have 10, and if they don't utilize them, it carries over and then is able to move into what they have in their current accounts over the course of time if they've been employed with this district or even in other public schools in the state.
10 sick days per year?
Correct.
5. So that's not 2 weeks, just short of 2 weeks. Is that accurate? So if somebody were on Fmla and used their sick leave bank and they had 10 days, they would get paid for less than 2 weeks out of that sick leave. Is that accurate?
Well, 2 weeks in is 10 days. People don't work on Saturdays and Sundays, so the 10 days would be considered 2 full weeks. You know, like if you were to count Monday through Friday,
Yes,
those are two full weeks.
I understand that, but if they're on Fmla, then they're not getting paid for that weekend, correct?
Again, Fmla and OFLA are considered unpaid, but they are able to access their sick leave days. So whatever they have in the bank, they could utilize up to 60 days.
Okay. Out of curiosity, and I think I'm misunderstanding Mr. Hugh, but are there donation policies related to donating? Is that what you're talking about? People donating their leave balances to employees who might be affected?
Both on the classified and licensed contracts, there are sick leave banks where people can actually donate to a larger pool. So if colleagues that have serious medical conditions need and they use all of their individual sick leave days, they can actually access a pool of X amount of days. And again, on the license side, there's a committee that actually, if somebody expends all of their leave days, somebody can make a request through HR, and then we would communicate directly with our colleagues from the license from GBEA, and their committee would make a determination if they would be able to access an X number of sick leave days. On the classified side of the house, you do have to donate to the sick leave bank to be able to utilize it, but the district, there will be a request to HR. I usually talk to the co-presidents just to make sure they're aware of how many days, but the district does get to allow people to use that if they've expended their time. So it is a separate pot.
The discussion about paid leave and sick days isn't reasonable accommodation, or is that your definition of reasonable accommodation? I thought reasonable accommodation was how can teachers continue to perform their duties while getting paid their salary with not having to take advantage or to use sick days and other paid benefits. But what is reasonable accommodation? Is that our definition?
Director
Sorry, sorry, Mr. Hugh, is that question to me? Is that what you're, or is that a redirect? Well, I thought
sorry. No,
I had just
you, Blake.
Okay. Mr. Hugh, it sounds like you're on.
Sure. So I shared a little bit about what a reasonable accommodation under ADA. I think I read basically what was under the ADA reasonable accommodations are adjustments or modifications provided. I know that you are stating that you don't agree that a reasonable accommodation is being given in this circumstance, but I can assure you that reasonable accommodations are being utilized. And again, we're giving as much flexibility as we can within the law. So, you know, again, it also talks about undue hardship on the district, because a reasonable accommodation doesn't necessarily mean that the district's going to be under undue hardship in the circumstance.
And does ADA accommodations primarily start with the person directly, our staff member? And
really
if
only
the staff member,
our staff member directly. And again, we're working with staff members that not just have medical doctor's notes for themselves, which under ADA, we are required to have these interactive meetings, but we're also having interactive meetings when staff members have other considerations around other family members, children, and then of course, childcare, as we've stated before. So while it's not necessary an ADA accommodation, we are having these interactive meetings to try to work with our staff members based on where we feel like we can accommodate them.
Okay, so but ADA is something that only applies to the staff member. There
The
are other
individual
things that
staff
you're
member.
working with staff, but they're not necessarily an ADA because that would be a federal requirement. So there are other things about how they could do their job in a different way. I want to make sure that we don't lose one other thing. We've been talking quite a bit about childcare, that we also, it was on the strengths and challenges, that the partial childcare scenario may be a huge challenge for our families. And again, you know, looking to Champions, who has been a partner with the district for many, many, many years, that this would be an opportunity for them to really step up and be very flexible. Previously, they requested and required certain amount of time, certain amount of days. And so this is going to be very creative for them. And I would encourage them to be as flexible as possible so that we don't have children whose parents with this weird afternoon time are unable to have their children in a safe environment with a safe adult, that we look at making sure that we're protecting them in that as well, and not charging an exorbitant rate of money in order to take care of their kids.
I believe, without being as familiar with the scale for paying for the service, they have been very cooperative. They've been very interactive. They have asked good questions. We have given them access to buildings to make sure that they could get their site certifications up and running in advance. And I spoke to the certifications for their staff before. My conversations with them, without looking at the paperwork that they need to have been give me confidence that they're going to be able to do that.
Okay, any other questions? So it seems to me that we've touched on both of those discussion items. And Lisa, are the athletic and activities updates that's coming, does that affect the calendar discussion that you're asking the board to have?
No, they do not.
Okay, could you bring back that calendar then?
Oh, sure.
And on the calendar, Chair Peterson, in approving this timeline, or whoever would answer this, if things were going well and it accelerated where we move things through in a different way, do we need to do anything different, or this calendar gets it in motion and then allows flexibility by staff to make any other changes moving forward?
Yeah. Go ahead, Lisa, go ahead. Or
Well,
were you answering?
or I thought I heard Superintendent Pereira, sorry, but our recommendation and the action item that's set for the board tonight is to approve or make an adjustment to the calendar. It just really says to approve this calendar. We've stated the reasons around it. We have worked diligently with the collective groups, and we have listened to the families and are continuing to work with all parties. I realized that we did speak, and I think it was Chair Peterson who had said that we're heading in the direction with 50 or less, that it could be a full board. Again, I would suggest, and I think that the district leadership team would suggest, that moving from limited in person into a flow into the hybrid approach at the appropriate quad change, and then moving forward beyond that is our recommendation.
So the specific action item that the board needs to take or make a decision on is district leadership is proposing additional days off in previously instructional days that are no longer. That's the core action that we have to take, but in particular because of for the benefit of the public who's listening, that decision has second order effects, namely it affirms this this hybrid calendar, this hybrid model, instructional model.
Correct. We last time that the board made an action item, it included the calendar exception of up to 5 days of changing non-student days for training, professional learning around the health and safety measures, and also the support that is needed for our teaching staff to prepare back at school in their classrooms. This time we've set aside on the agenda for the approval of the updated calendar that we are presenting here, which shows the various professional learning days and non-student days that need to be added to prepare for the hybrid approach.
Okay. So there is a recommended action.
Can you go ahead and take down the screen sharing, or do people still need to see the calendar? It's in our somewhere. So it doesn't have a motion on this.
If you go, it's actually under the return to learn and under the action item I3.
There we go. There it is. Okay, I was looking at the wrong thing. Okay. I'll make the motion. I would move to approve the school calendar as presented as it relates to the non-student days needed for transition to hybrid.
Okay.
It's been moved by Director Howitt, seconded by Director O'Connell to approve the school calendar as presented as it relates to the non-student days needed for the transition to hybrid. Is there any discussion?
So I wanted to be clear then that we are not approving anything except the fact that we're taking 2 instruction days at the elementary school and 2 days at the middle high school to prep for this. That is what we're doing in changing the calendar, which is what the board does, changes instructional days or extends it when we have snow days or anything like that. So that's what this is. And then the flexibility of staff to implement the hybrid and moving forward.
Yes. To reframe that, Chris, from this point forward, the board will not receive, if this action is accepted, the board will not receive any other gateway at which we're affirming or turning away hybrid instruction model. That's correct. Any other discussion? Dr. Pereira.
Thank you, Chair Peterson. I just wanted to add one note on that as we move into our hybrid piece. In order to accelerate, as Director Howard requested, we would need to have some relaxations of the 35 square feet. So you can get more kids in the classroom, if you will. And also we need some relaxation from OHA on the 100 interactions of students throughout the day. So those 2 things, unless they are removed by OHA, will remain in place and will only allow us to do hybrid for the remainder of this school year. You know, again, I have no I don't know what will happen with OHA. And again, it is right now, those 2 stands, as metrics have changed throughout, those are 2 elements that have put a lot of restraints on what we can do. That has not changed. And, you know, I'm hoping that they do so that we can. However, please know that we will only be able to do hybrid from now to the end of this school year if those 2 items are not relaxed or lessened, if you will.
Okay, any other discussion? My discussion, not knowing, well, I'll just say my position is going to be very much in favor. I'll announce that. Not in dismissal of all of the emails that we've received and the concerns. I think I will tell you, I particularly appreciate the individual concerns when you vocalize your experience. And I would say that both of parents and of teachers. I realize the hardship that this decision can bring. I am grateful. Mr. Hugh, thank you for walking through some of my questions and others thoughtfully. I think those individual accommodations are critical. But I think ultimately our stewardship is over public education delivered to students. And this instructional model puts us on a trajectory to deliver it the way that we do it best. To do that, we need our incredible professional educators in classrooms doing what they do best, influencing and impacting kids. I don't see a way around that. I don't see a logistical way around it, which isn't fully my business, but I don't see a strategic way around it. So that's why I'm in favor, and I'll conclude my discussion there. Anybody else? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded.
I would just like to say one comment. Sorry, I was trying to get off mute. There was also, in addition to the plethora of emails not in favor of this, there was also a plethora of emails that were in favor of the hybrid model, and a lot of those did come from our staff.
And I'd like to take the opportunity also to share that I did meet with a focus group of our Latinx families last week, because I wanted to hear directly from them what they wanted for their families, what they need for their families. I didn't want to hear it secondhand. And all of them except for one, said that they wanted to return and that they trusted us to be taking the proper precautions. I explained what those precautions were to them. And they asked their questions. And even at the end, they still said that they wanted to come back, that they trusted us, and that they wanted for their kids to be with their teachers. Kids joined their parents in that focus group. And the kids said, we are ready to return back because we know that the district is taking the proper precautions to keep us safe. And I do represent our families in our community. So I am in favor of returning back after listening to those kids and after listening to parents and families. And these are multi-generational families that everyone has expressed concern for. These are families whose parents have been working every day since the pandemic started without sick leave, without personal days, without medical insurance. And they are asking us to reopen our schools. And they are asking us to provide proper instruction to their children. So I am ready to do that. And my kids here in my home are ready to go back.
I think everyone is ready to go back. Every one of us is supportive of going back as soon as possible. Everyone doesn't want the pandemic to have happened and wants to open up completely. It's just the way that we decide, on what is a safe way to do that. And, many different focus groups have said many different things, with different, like district-wide, about 60% of our families don't feel safe. And so, or it's 50-50, however, you want to look at it. So, I mean, we get a lot of emails on both sides. I must say I didn't receive a lot of email from staff saying that they wanted to go back, but I think it might be, if the public wants to know kind of our communication, it might be interesting to send all of our, emails to be aggregated to see what staff, wants to go back, what community members have advocated for what, to help the community understand on how we make our decisions. I'm supportive 100% of students going back and returning to learn, and I'm supportive of doing that in a way that keeps everyone safe. It would just be a tragedy at this moment when we are so close to having so many people vaccinated and hopefully getting back to normal for a tragedy to happen in our district. And that is, something that really motivates me to say, let's be as safe as possible.
You are so right, Robin. And that reminds me of a comment that was made several times at that meeting where parents kept saying, this isn't going anywhere. This isn't going and tomorrow. So we have to learn to live with it. So our kids need to learn how to take proper precautions and go to school safely. Our staff need to learn how to teach in a different way, like we have been for the past year, because this is how we're going to be living for a while. It's not going to get any better anytime soon. Hopefully it does, right? But we don't know. And until then, we cannot be jeopardizing our kids' future.
Because I think maybe in our community, that's where the conflict is, right? Our conflict is a bit about, you know, like, is this the new normal, or is the conflict that we have new vaccinations and we need to wait a little bit longer? So that's where I'm coming from personally, and that's what I can speak to. I think that the end is in sight, that we have vaccinations, that, you know, we can get, you know, a lot of people safe and secure, and, you know, patience is key. I do find it very concerning going back with all the variants coming out, variants that make it more infectious, variants that can make it more deadly. And for me, that's a concern, right? It's like we are this close with the vaccinations, with all the safety procedures, if we just wait a little bit. So that, you know, is how I see it. I understand if people just feel like this is it, let's just jump into it. You know, I understand that perspective. And I think it's important to understand where we're all coming from.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's important to compromise. And that's why we said that we wanted all of our staff to have the opportunity to get their 2 vaccines, not just 1, but 2. So everyone has had that opportunity. And hopefully, like, we will be taking the proper precautions, because right now we're worried about variants, and then tomorrow it'll be something else. So that's why it is important for our kids to start learning what those precautions are, and for our staff to learn what those are. If our families, if our parents are willing to be going out and work and expose themselves, and they've been living with it, we can. I mean, we're very privileged. We have sick days. We have FMLA, and we have all those benefits. We even have health insurance, and a lot of our families don't.
Not all of us have sick days too.
Right, exactly. And and we're not being forced to go back to work. We have the option to take that sick leave, to use that family leave. So if our families are willing to trust us, we can compromise.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Chair Peterson, can I say something real fast?
Sure.
And I'm not trying to get involved in the board's discussion, but I'm also keenly aware that we have several families and staff members on the call. And so I just wanted to make sure that that those folks know that we are not, as a district leadership team, trying to make a decision about what is an acceptable level of risk. I had to have those conversations in my previous line of work very often. That's not what is happening here. 46 states across our country have reopened schools safely. Schools have been shown to not be a vector of transmission. Our support services teams in our own district have been providing direct service to families for a year now in this context, and we haven't had any transmission, which shows us that when we implement the protocols that the Ready School Safe Learners Guidance calls for, staff and students can both be safe. That was pre-vaccines. It's certainly even more true now with vaccines. And so we're not asking staff to come back to work and do something unsafe. We're certainly not going to compel staff to come back to work if they feel, because of their own individual circumstances, that they can't do so safely. But we are a public employer spending public money. And so we will spend that money in compliance with the law. We don't have the ability to just make up definitions of reasonable accommodation because it's not our money. We're not a mom and pop shop that can just pay for whatever we want to pay for. So staff has tried to explain that today. At this point, what I would say, especially for staff members who maybe feel like they're getting a lot of conflicting information, is please reach out. I know James would be happy to talk with people. Unfortunately, he's had to shoulder a lot of this load himself. I'm happy to talk with people as well. I handled HR in a former district, and I can support James in that. But if people want to have a conversation about how we are scaffolding our safety protocols to ensure that they can be safe in the classroom, be safe in the lunchroom, be safe getting kids from the buses to the classrooms, be safe at recess, we're happy to have those conversations with staff. That's literally what we're here for. But our district office team has been working in the office. We know that adults working in close proximity together is a much higher risk than adults working in close proximity with children. And so, and we've been trying to do these things to demonstrate that we have put safety plans and risk management policies in place that allow us all to work safely and provide services to our community safely. That is what we're trying to accomplish here. We are not trying to have some conversation about whether or not somebody's life is valuable enough to sacrifice it for a student's life or something like that. We know enough about this virus now that we don't have to have those conversations anymore. And we can bring kids back safely. And we can bring staff back safely.
Board, any discussion? Okay, so the motion's on the table to approve the school calendar as presented as it relates to the non-student days needed for the transition to hybrid. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. I'm recording that as unanimous. If you're not opposed, or if you're opposed, make sure to. Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's not unanimous.
Okay. Did you vote no?
I didn't vote.
She can abstain. So how many positive votes did you get?
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Director Peluso, I'm not seeing your face or hearing your voice.
Well, I'm here.
Okay. Is that an aye?
Yes.
Okay. So 6. 6, 0, 1 abstain. Okay. We are, again, we've moved those presentations, the instructional highlights to a future meeting. I want to recess briefly. We'll do a 10-minute recess, and here's what I'm here's what I want to communicate. So earlier this afternoon, Sarah Avery provided me not only the public comments, but those of you who had responded in affirmation that you would be willing to speak, provide your public comments verbally. Those persons are Kayla Seals, Josh Barstow, Jason Parker, Tanya Allen, Ryan Weber, Heidi Schmidt, Holly Riegelman, and Crystal Helland. I realize that this meeting is moving long, but I intend to have all of you have an opportunity to communicate. That said, if the content of this meeting has made you not want to speak, one of 2 ways: you can email Sarah Avery in this recess and let her know, but also we'll be facilitating those comments by raising your hand. And if you simply don't raise your hand in the attendee window, then we'll just forego you after a brief pause. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to recess. It's 9:10. We'll come back at 9:18 and we'll resume 8 minutes.
And just to hear you again, Blake, you said if somebody wants to speak now, they can send their information to Sarah?
No, these are folks. So everybody who provided public comment received communication from the district asking if they are willing to not only provide them as a public comment, but also actually speak that public comment at this meeting. Those folks who my invitation was, if they no longer want to speak, it is okay to rescind that. They could email Sarah Avery or just not raise their hand when we get to that portion. Okay, thanks everybody. I'll see you back at 9:18.
Sarah, I want to be in San Francisco where you are.
Just change your background. You can be in San Francisco.
My laptop is too old.
If, as you come on and turn your video on, just to confirm that you're here.
Hi.
I hear you, Carla. All right, we're going to resume. First up, coming out of recess, will be our association reports and Gresham-Barlow Education Association with Rhett Hyman. Thanks for joining us, Rhett.
Yes, good evening. It's still nice and early, but anyways, I'll get to my thoughts. So good evening, school board members, Superintendent Pereira, and all the teachers, staff, community members listening or watching tonight. The membership of the GBA, as you know, has many different thoughts, ideas, opinions of how to get back to school. I want the school board, the community members, staff, parents, students that are listening tonight, that we want to be with our students in the classroom. I want to make that crystal clear that we really want to be with our students. We also want to make sure that when we do return, which is going to be soon, that we do it the right way. We continue to work and meet with the district to make sure that we are doing so in the safest way possible, that all protocols are in place and all contractual agreements are met. We also want to make sure that the most vulnerable members are protected, as Director Stowers has mentioned tonight, to make it work for them and to allow them to continue to serve their students. We recognize the importance of relationships and consistency for our students. We understand how important it is, especially for our most underserved students, to remain with their current teachers. We love our students, we love our families, we love our community, and we want to be with them soon. I do want to end tonight, though, in wishing the classified staff of the Gresham-Barlow School District a great Classified Employees Week. You are truly honored and appreciated by each and every one in the GBEA. We are so thankful for all that you do and all the time and effort that you put into serving the students of the GBSD. We want to thank you for all your tireless efforts each and every day, and we couldn't do our job without you supporting us and supporting the students. We hope you have felt honored and appreciated this week during Classified Employees Week, and here is to celebrating in person next year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Rhett. Next is the Oregon School Employees Association, T. Ross. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chair Peterson, fellow members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Pereira. We would like to say thank you for honoring us this week. And it's been an interesting year, but also all the creative ways that various staff have gone out of their way to make us feel appreciated has been really wonderful. And it was really fun this week we had our social, another virtual social, and it was really fun to hear all the different creative ways that all the different buildings responded to Classified Appreciation Week. So on behalf of all classified, I'd like to say thank you. And that's all I've got tonight.
Thank you, Tia. At this time, we have time's been set aside for citizens' requests of the board. We received 26 letters before 5 p.m. today that were specifically submitted for the board. That includes, though, 2 representative samples, maybe 3 of petitions or common communications that were disseminated to the board. All of those are available in the public record. If you go to the district website, go under board information. There's a board docs icon there. Click on that and get to our meeting. And under agenda item H1, you can read those. However, we do have a few members of the audience who are interested in reading or communicating their statement. And so I'm going to ask for Kayla Seals. And if I call your name and you can just raise your hand in the attendee window, then you'll be promoted over. Sarah will promote you, and then you can introduce yourself, your relationship to the district, and then about 3 minutes to communicate your thoughts. So Kayla Seals, are you attending? Okay. And next, Jason Parker. Okay. So again, Jason, as you're getting moved over into the panelist group, please introduce yourself, your relationship to the district, and then your thoughts. Thanks, Jason.
Good evening. My name is Jason Parker. I have 2 children at East Orient Elementary in 3rd and 5th grade. And I just want to thank thank you all for time giving me to express my displeasure with the new hybrid model that was rolled out this week. I feel that 2.5 hours in the afternoon, twice a week, is just not enough for in-person learning. I've personally spoken to other parents in the district and from different areas, not only in the region, but also across the nation. Some have been back doing in-person learning since October. And I have friends across the river in Vancouver, and their kids are at least getting 4 hours of in-person learning twice a week. From the email that I received on Tuesday, 60% of the parents polled want their kids back in school. Give our children that ability. I'm pretty sure that 60% want more than 2.5 hours twice a week. You must do better. And if your hands are tied, then you need to speak up like I am to your superiors and make them know that the community you serve is dissatisfied with the current situation. You are letting down the children and the families of the Gresham-Barlow community. And lastly, Dr. Pereira, it is your job to listen to your community and push back against OHA and let them know that the science also shows much more benefits for our children to be into the classroom and not distance learning. So please stand up, fight for your community, fight for the children. And that's basically all I have to say. I appreciate the time.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Next, Tanya Allen. You're Hi, Tanya, I think you're still muted, which all of
I
us
got
have done at some point, but if
I'm
you could
wait-
just introduce yourself and your connection to the district. Thanks.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, I'm more used to the Google Meets, so. All right, so my name is Tanya Allen, and before I read my shortened comment, I would just like to clarify that not all staff have received their second shots yet. I scheduled my vaccine as soon as I was given the opportunity. And my second shot is not until March 14th. And I also know many other staff that do not have shots, their second shot until even later than that. I wish the board had waited to vote on returning to school, but I will still read my comment. I am a special education paraprofessional at Clear Creek Middle School. I have worked for the district for 15 years. I love my job. I chose this profession because I truly care about the students in our community. Both of my own children went through Gresham-Barlow School District. My daughter, Emily, graduated last year from Gresham High School. Her graduation was held in the old Kmart parking lot. At first, the idea of not watching her walk across the stage to receive her diploma broke my heart. However, the world was dealing with a pandemic, so we made the best of the situation. We put a class of 2020 sign in our yard. We decorated our car, and we drove by Grandma and Grandpa's house so they could cheer her on. Then we proudly drove across the stage with her. It turned out to be an amazing day. I want to thank the district for doing the best that they could to make the day special, even in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. My daughter's first year of college looks very different from what she had imagined. However, my daughter is doing awesome. My son, Brody, who also went through Gresham-Barlow School District, he is an ICU nurse, and he went to New York during the COVID pandemic to help out. This pandemic has touched all of our lives. As a special education paraprofessional, I have the opportunity to work with students in their core classes and also in small breakout rooms. I have formed relationships with my students, and they trust me to be there to help them and advocate for them when necessary. This week, multiple students told me that they are scared to return to in-person classes. They have spent the last year getting used to working online. They have been able to take breaks and move around their home whenever they need to. They do not have to wear a mask. They do not have to be careful to remain socially distant. My students know how things work. They have a routine. Schedule changes are very difficult for a lot of my students. This past year has not been ideal, but this has not been a wasted year. Many great things did happen. I have watched students gain valuable technology skills that will surely benefit them in the years to follow. This would not have happened in a normal school year. I am amazed at what the students have learned this year. They have also learned that when things do not go as planned, you do not give up. You figure out new ways to deal with life challenges. I realize that this year has not been easy, and I truly empathize with families trying to figure out how to survive this crazy year. My heart aches for all that we have lost, but I am also very proud of how we have worked as a community to make the best of what was thrown at us. We made history. Remaining in CDL is not taking the easy way out for educators. I know many teachers who have been working 7 days a week trying to provide the best online learning experience that they possibly can for their students. The school year is almost over. The hybrid model would only give students 2 days a week in the building, so approximately 16 to 20 days before the end of the school year. In a normal school year, it usually takes students at least a month to adjust to the new school year. The idea that students will be able to adjust to this new routine in the amount of time left is unrealistic. I cannot wait until the day we can all safely return to school. But for now, I urge the board, but it doesn't really matter now, I guess, to let us continue with CDL for the remainder of the school year. I shortened my comment, but my full statement goes into more detail of the great things that Clear Creek students have been learning about technology this year. So I hope you will read my full statement. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Tanya. Ryan Weber.
Hello, am I up?
You're on.
Okay.
Thanks, Ryan. You can just introduce yourself, your connection to the district, and then 3 minutes or so.
Okay, I'm 46 years old. I've lived in the district for 44 of those years. I went to Barlow High School, went to Damascus Middle School. I met my wife, who was in the 8th grade. She went to Orient. We went to Barlow together. We walked to graduation together. I love this community. I invested in it. I love the children of this community, and I want to teach them and educate them. And I want to see them educated. And seems like a good place to go would be the school district to talk. I wanted to share a couple of experiences that I've seen that I thought might help you guys. Any of us, the closer we get to something, sometimes the harder it is to see. And sometimes it's good to have reference points from different locations. And I've had some very unique opportunities afforded to me and my family because I have a son who happens to be a very good baseball player. And since the time that boy was 3 years old, he wanted to play Major League Baseball. And and he wanted to be a basketball player, and his basketball season ended 2 days shy of being able to win a championship for Coach Johnson, who I played for and he also played for. But then his baseball season ended. But because he's so good, he had some opportunities that other people wanted him to play, and we went elsewhere. We went to some different states, and the 2 big states where baseball is played, where the 2 spring training leagues happen, are in Florida and Arizona. So let me rewind back a little bit and tell you guys how nervous I was. I don't know if terrified is the right word, because I'm not terrified of dying, but I want to be safe and I want to do the right thing. And I don't want to be wanton, reckless. I don't want to put people at risk, my family at risk. And I had some decisions to make. Do I get in an airplane? Do I go to a state that if you read some of the news, you think these people are reckless? And in order for my kid to fulfill his dream, we had to go to Florida and Arizona. And when I showed up there at first, I was extremely shocked. They're different than we are. And it's hard to put it in words how different everything is in those states. And they weren't unsafe. And I noticed a different way of doing things, and things still got done. And so I came back and I started paying attention to what the numbers were doing, and are things safe or are they not in these states. And then I rode my bike by a school playground with my boy. We looked at the playground, and there's 300 kids playing on a playground. And I haven't seen kids playing. It's kind of overwhelming when you get to see kids play. And I'm a competitive person. I'm frustrated coming in last place. You know what? If everybody's better than me, then I guess I'm okay with it. But deep down, I want to make sure I'm doing my best. And there's a little bit of the competitive nature in me to come back to our state and to try to figure out we're not educating our kids as good as some other people. And I don't know, I didn't know what to do without it. And so I wrote you guys a letter, and writing a letter is, it's always difficult because you can't tell what a person thinks, what they're trying to say, if they actually care about people. And I do care about people. So I saw some things in those states that I came back and I see them doing things. I see them playing, and I think we can do better. So I want to see us get our schools fully opened and back to normal as soon as we can. Now, everyone has a different opinion on as soon as we can safely do it. We need to do it safely, but we've seen some other people pull it off safely. And if other people can do it, I know my community can. I know we can do it. I love these people. The resolve our community has, we can get it done. And I think we're better than other communities. So I want to see that happen. Another experience that's very unique to me, my wife, who I met in 8th grade, and
Ryan, I think we got one more minute in.
I have 1 minute left.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go very fast.
Okay.
So my wife is a nurse. Two of her 4 grandparents died from respiratory illness. My wife has a major propensity for respiratory illness. So when COVID comes, and your wife's a nurse, and she works in the ER in your district, it's a little bit nerve-wracking that you want to send her into that. Well, she's worked with COVID patients almost every day that she's worked, and she's tested daily with antibodies to know if she has it or not. And she went to take care of the most vulnerable we have, and she's done it very safely day in and day out. And another funny thing is she's not treated a single person under 20 with COVID. However, she's seen dozens and dozens and dozens of people below 20 who are in the hospital for attempted suicide, depression, mental illness. And those are also very real, and they're in our community. And so 2 different angles of things I've seen that I just want to encourage you that we can get back to fully open. We can do it safely.
Thank you, Ryan. Crystal Helland.
Hi there. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. Thanks,
Okay.
Crystal.
Hi, I'm Crystal Helland. I am a teacher at one of our middle schools here in Gresham-Barlow. Thank you so much for giving me this time to speak. I hope it's okay that I've kind of added a lot of personal information to my comment as opposed to what I sent in. I want to start by saying how much I love my job and this district and the students I've worked with over the last 5 years. Earlier in the school year, staff were given the opportunity to submit documentation if their health put them at a higher risk of contracting and/or experiencing severe disease reactions from COVID. We met with HR, submitted our documents, and we were promised we could continue teaching for the remainder of the year from the safety of our homes. We did not seek other employment or make other arrangements because we were promised our jobs. Now, 2 days before this board meeting, we were told We will need to either come back in person to in-person learning or take leave. Because of the serious consequences I would certainly experience if I were to contract COVID, I have taken extraordinary precautions to protect myself throughout this past year. My father had been hospitalized for some time as was released in February of 2020 on hospice. He was able to return home with around-the-clock care so that he could pass in the comfort of his own home. During this time, my partner and I and our 2-year-old video chatted with him daily, but we only visited him once before he passed that April. It was heartbreaking, but it was what we felt we had to do to stay safe. I dearly loved my father. I love my work and my students enormously. However, I am now being forced to choose between potentially life-threatening working conditions or taking a leave of absence. I now feel I have no choice. My family made arrangements for our home and childcare based on the knowledge that I would continue working and from home. My partner changed his work arrangements to provide childcare for our son on the assumption that I would continue working. Had I known when I met with HR in December of 2020 that I would need to choose my job or my health and maybe my life, we would have absolutely chosen to do things differently. I do not believe I'm the only staff member who made choices based on the district's promise that we could continue safely working from home. COVID numbers may be lower. However, new variants of the virus that are more contagious and deadly are again raising concerns. Unfortunately, the vaccines have shown to be less effective against these new variants. The district promised that an accommodation for our disabilities, we could continue safely working from home. That promise, I feel, has been broken. I ask that the district keep its promise and allow staff members who have submitted the required documentation to continue working from home for the remainder of the school year. Thank you for allowing me to share my experience and advocate for myself and others.
Thanks for joining us, Crystal. Heidi Schmidt.
I'm assuming she's under Brandon Schmidt, so I'm going to go ahead and promote that one.
Yes. Hi.
Hey, Heidi, if you can just introduce yourself, your relationship to the district, and then comments to about 3 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
My name's, Heidi Schmidt. I have 3 children in the Gresham-Barlow School District, a high schooler, a middle schooler, and a grade schooler. And I just wrote a letter that I will read. Hello, Gresham-Barlow School Board members. I'm writing a letter today to express my feelings about the return to learn plan or lack of plan that's of today, from what I heard earlier. I believe that every single student should have the opportunity to be in person if they so choose. On January 17th, our county metrics have allowed for K through 5th grade to be in hybrid. So soon after that, our metrics were met for our middle schoolers and our high schoolers. That's 6 weeks that all of our kindergartners could have been in school. Back in November at a school board meeting, it was said that when our county gets the okay for hybrid school to happen, that it would take a couple weeks to get things organized and schedules figured out. Obviously, that hasn't happened. It is extremely hard to trust our school board members when it is not felt like you've put our children first. As a parent, we're continuing to write to you, explaining how our children are struggling, and I'm just worried that you're not listening to us because we haven't progressed very far yet. I'm assuming that the majority of our school board members do not actually have students in our school district. I could be wrong, and I apologize for that if I am. But it's hard to trust that you have our children's best interests at heart when you can't comprehend what an actual day doing online schoolwork looks like for our kids. My kids are getting good grades. They're checking all the boxes, but there's no motivation for anything more than checking the boxes. No thriving to be at the top of the class, no healthy competition to get things done faster. We all know it. Online school is failing our children. My husband and I are both alumni from the Gresham-Barlow School District. My father's an alumni. My grandmother was a teacher at Pavlik Grade School for so many years before she retired. And I'm fighting for my children to be in the school because I love our school district. We have been invested in our district for many generations. I have hundreds of volunteer hours that I've put into our school district. I desire for my kids to graduate from the Gresham-Barlow School District. I don't know if any of our school board members have been to any of the Gresham-Barlow basketball games lately. When I walk into the gym, I see people that I went to school with. I see alumni. I see grandparents are alumni. Our district is special because of that, because we care about our community. We care about our kids and we want better for our kids. And that's exactly why our community chose to pass the bond nearly 5 years ago. We care about our kids. We have amazing, amazing teachers. We have top of the line coaches that pour love and respect into our kids. The longer you don't let our children go to school in person, the more you showed us that you do not hold the same values. We said at the last school board meeting that the majority of our students want to be in school. A lot of it has been the 60% level, whatever level you guys are talking about. A lot of kids want to be in school. And as of right now, the only thing that's stopping our children from being in school is our school board, I'm afraid. I do not want to send my kids anywhere else, but I feel like this is our deciding month. As of right now, I have one child pre-registered at another school, and we've been researching for another child. If the Gresham-Barlow School District cannot get our kids in hybrid ASAP, then what faith do we have that you can get our kids in school for 5 days a week next year? There's no reason why any of our parents would send our kids to Gresham-Barlow School District school if you don't actually offer in-school teaching and you don't actually offer sports for all of our athletes. One thing that the pamphlet for the Gresham-Barlow School District said that I want to point out, it said that one of your jobs as a school board member is to, in quotes, you can accept the will of the majority. So if the majority want our kids to be in school or want the option for children to choose to be in school, then you're not listening to the majority, and that is your job. You're making decisions based on your own thoughts, ideas, and fears, and not what the majority of the community to do. So I'm requesting that all kids have the opportunity to be in hybrid as soon as possible. No more spaced out 1 week. You've already kind of laid that stuff out, so I'll skip around to that. I do want to tell you about my high schooler. She is doing forecasting right now, and she's loving it. She's so excited for the opportunity in the classes that she's reading about. And she can't even make a decision because she's so excited about them. I don't want to lose that motivation. Please help our children.
Heidi, we might have lost some connectivity just right, right there. Am I the only one who did? Or okay. So you had just introduced us to your high schooler and said
That
she had.
was it.
Okay. Yeah. That was it. You said.
Yeah. Were you able to hear my letter?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yep. Nope. You just cut out there right at the end. I think it was the end. I'm not.
Okay.
But.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Well. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, Heidi.
Thanks.
Next, we have Holly Riegelman on behalf of a petition that was circulated. Holly, if you'd rather not, then you just don't raise your hand. But if you do, go ahead and raise your hand and we can see you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Board Chair and Directors. My name is Holly Riegelman, and I'm here tonight to represent the 94 parents and community members who signed a petition in favor of in-person learning for those that choose it. It is my understanding that you all received those petitions, so I will just read it for you and for the public. I'll also say that some of these things have been addressed somewhat, so I appreciate the work you guys are doing and the vote to get hybrid kids back in hybrid. So here is the petition. Gresham-Barlow School District leaders, school board members, and GBEA. Science is no longer being followed. Metrics have been met. Experts say students should be in school. Our children are suffering and we are done standing by quietly waiting for you to do what is right. We want all of our kids, K through 12, to have the option to return to in-person learning immediately. A hybrid schedule understandably may be necessary while we make the transition back to in-person learning, but we do expect a full 5-day in-person schedule by the fall. We want our athletes to compete in all sports, regardless of whether they are no contact or full contact this school year. More affluent districts in our conference are playing full contact football. And like I said, some of these things have changed, so I know that we have opted back in for that. And so again, thank you. So I'll skip a little bit of that. But the point is, bring our students back to the classroom, allow our athletes to compete in all sports. We are done accepting excuses and do whatever it takes. So thank you. Thank you for doing what it takes. Thank you for putting the hybrid option that you did before the board tonight. Board, thank you for that vote and the encouragement that that brings to families that their students will eventually this year go back to the classroom. I just encourage you guys to continue to find the ways and the opportunities that you have to say yes after a year of such disappointment. I think that brings so much hope to students and families. So again, thank you for inviting me here tonight, and I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thanks for joining us, Holly. Last, there were two later submissions that we weren't able to confirm, so I'm going to invite those folks to speak. Again, just raise your hand if you're in the attendees group and you do want to read your comment in if you're one of these two individuals, Kate Poland or Elena Wyndham. Kate or Elena, are you here? So those comments came in just before 5 p.m. So our district, Sarah Avery, was not able to confirm whether that these individuals wanted to speak their comments in, but they're available to the board in 25 and 26 under that agenda item and the public. Jasia, I see that you've raised your hand. Are you speaking on behalf of Elena or Kate? And I guess that's an unfair question to ask of an attendee. If you are to speak for Kate or Elena's comments or to represent them, go ahead and raise your hand again, Jasia. Okay. Sarah, is Jasia promoted here? I don't see her in the panelists. Jasia, Jasia, I'm sorry. I think it's our technical issues. If you're here to speak for either the comments that Kate Poland made or Elena Wyndham, I'm sorry. If you could raise your hand so that we can promote you. I think it's on our end. Oh, okay. Thanks for that clarification. So neither of those individuals are able to speak are able to speak today. So again, for the community, you can go to the district website, gresham.k12.or.us. Under board information, click on the board docs icon and navigate to this meeting agenda. And you can see the citizens' requests of the board there. In addition, if you want to provide citizens' requests to the board going forward, anytime we're in a virtual format, you can email Sarah Avery at Avery, A-V-E-R-Y 4, the number, at gresham.k12.or.us by 5 p.m. The night of the meeting, and we'll get those included into public comment. Thanks everybody for sharing, and thanks for all of you who maybe didn't speak today, but also provided comment. Okay, we're going to move on to action items. I recognize the time. We're going to get through our core business. I1 is the renewal of Public Charter School Center for Advanced Learning, and this has Carla Gay's name on it.
Good evening, Chair Peterson and the board. Sorry, as I'm navigating to the right spot. Tonight there is an action item before you that OAR 581-26-400 requires that public charter schools must have a public hearing which allows for any public comment prior to a board voting to approve or deny the renewal of the charter. Last month, there was a public hearing, and so following the request for renewal, and after a period of no more than 30 days, which occurred on February 4th, The board must then vote on the renewal based on a good faith evaluation of state laws, compliance with the charter, meeting performance goals, and fiscal stability. The good faith evaluation must be based on a review of the public charter schools' annual performance reports, annual audit of accounts, and annual site visit. Steve Day, Director of Cal, will present the required information for the board to make an informed decision on the renewal request of Cal Charter School.
Thank you, Carla, and thank you everybody for being here and your patience with this evening. I'm gonna, if I may, share screen so I can share some information via PowerPoint. And I'll do so, you can see, is that visible to everybody?
Yes, Steve, it is, yeah.
Very much. So as Carla expressed, and as I know we talked about last month in terms of the presentation of this idea for the charter renewal, we're asking for a 5-year renewal for the Center for Advanced Learning. And we did a site visit about a week and a half ago, including all 3 partner districts, including Gresham-Barlow, of course. And they used a rubric that I will summarize briefly here, and certainly you have full access to, in terms of academic and operational guidelines. And the 4 academic areas you can see here, I won't read them to you, but you can see the 4 areas, and I'll go over these individually briefly for you so you can see how we're doing at Cal and most importantly, how our students are doing at Cal before you're asked to make this vote. So academic, what I did was I pulled information from our really sort of our only point in sort of state accountability for our tests. As many of you know, since its inception, Cal has taught English language arts as part of our core courses. Students take that as part of their program at Cal, regardless of the program that they're in. English is a part of their core experience. And I just pulled some summary data as to how all Cal students are doing compared to students across the state on the same performance for reading and for writing, and then across various subgroups. And you can see that we do pretty well overall. The nice part about this data, of course, is it provides us some lens into both our successes and also our challenges. I can look at this data quickly and see, okay, we're doing well in different areas, but of course you can see there's like, oh, we've done lower than the state average in certain areas, specifically with our Asian students, and that's a great data point for us in any type of analysis to explore a little more further and understand what it is that we're doing and how we can support our students better. I also compared us to our partner high schools, just as a comparison in terms of, again, 2019, 2020 data in the same state testing for English language arts. And that's, again, our reading and writing and across all students in these categories. And of course, hopefully if you have questions, you'll just stop me and I will pause and answer those questions. But I'm going to move relatively quickly given the time of the evening. Student academic achievement at Cal, what we took a look at in our survey of our performance for the site visit was the various certifications that students are able to reach as a result of their work within Cal. So NIMS is a national certification, is just one example in the manufacturing area, and Cal is one of very few schools in the country that provides that opportunity for certification. And that's a certification, is a good example. It follows you for your entire career if students achieve that at Cal or shortly thereafter. And then our advanced CPR, first aid, et cetera, in the medical assistant program, many different certification areas. Just Cal's mission, if you're not familiar with it, is to bring career technical education at an industry standard to East County students in all 3 districts. And so the certifications are one of the ways we can benchmark the quality of that education. And then a second way, of course, is our post-secondary readiness. And Cal does that and accomplishes this bullet point specifically by preparing students through the use of college credits and the access to college credits and then their ability to attain them. We have, as you can see, in almost every program, a list of college credits that are available to all students. And I pulled the latest data with Mount Hood's help for 2020. We had over 2,300 college credits awarded to over 663 students. Of course, we have 500 students, so some of those students are double counted because they're earning credits in multiple areas. And I don't know if you can see it on the corner of the screen there, but that's a savings to our students and to their families of over $290,000. I was not able to get disaggregated data, but given more time, we can continue to work on that. I'd love to see that data based on the various subgroups for student populations, but we just didn't have time to gather that with the community college. And then moving from academic into operational, we are, of course, as any charter school, obligated to meet these following areas. Specifically, of course, common concern with charters is finance. And I will say, one of the great things about Cal in terms of the support we receive from our partner districts, and specifically Gresham-Barlow, we contract with the district, if you're not familiar, to provide, or to, pardon me, to receive support in the areas of finance, human resources, and facilities, and so technology. So we have great support and a great partnership with the district. So as I move through these bullet points, you'll see we're doing well. And I say we do that well based on our work and the work that the support we're being provided by the district. It's fantastic. In terms of educational programs, I mentioned already, our courses are aligned for our students with industry standards. And as you can see from all the college credit, with college standards and college curricula. We're meeting our ODE requirements for the minimum amount of time for a high school program. And then we have great support, not just from Gresham-Barlow, but also from Reynolds and Centennial for students that require or need additional program support and special ed, second language students, et cetera. In terms of finance, I just included, we're doing well. I included just a copy and paste clip from our most recent audit. We are audited every year with the help of the Gresham-Barlow business office. And you can see we have an unmodified opinion. This is all good news if you're not familiar with audit language. There were no exceptions or issues requiring comment in our audit for this past year. And the no separate management letter was issued indicating no concerns, no large concerns in any of these areas. And that's great for a charter school because that's often where they may stumble, and it's been a good performance in terms of Cal. And then governance, we have a great board. Dr. Pereira is a part of our board, along with the other two superintendents from Reynolds and Centennial, and we have industry partners on our board. And we are, along with the president of Mount Hood Community College, and we're meeting our requirements for meeting times and governance by that board. Again, with district support, we're able to track that along with all of our student reporting systems. And then we are, as required by law, of course, abiding by all the guidelines that schools are required to in terms of FERPA, student information, in terms of student discipline, and in terms of employee status. I'm proud to say we did encounter about a year and a half ago an salary equity issue among Cal staff. It was brought to our attention, and we quickly addressed that within the first year that became a concern, and we're able to take care of that and then move forward. And so that's been a great success. And then if you're not familiar with Cal, just wanted to provide a snapshot of our demographics in terms of who we are. We reflect the diversity of East County, and we do so proudly. We reflect the diversity of our students across all three districts, and we're proud to support all of our students. I also provided a lens into, and this is a little bit more detailed than you might want this time of night, but you lens into our enrollment, and you can see from the column on 2020, 2021, we started with 534 students, and then you can see how it progresses over the years. Each month, we track this by month. We have experienced a drop in enrollment from August through January, similar probably to many districts across the state and even across the country. As you can see from historical data, that 11% drop from August to January has not been reflected in prior years. So I wanted to make sure that we highlight that we have a strong retention at Cal, this year being the exception. I dove a little deeper into the data to see what that retention looked like and attrition looked like. And so you can see the number of students that have withdrawn from Cal. And this is in 2019, it was the year we had 8% withdraw. And so I want to look at a year where we had significant numbers and compare that not only the percentage of students who in that group, but also to the percentage of total Cal population. And that provided us, again, a lens into how we're doing in terms of, are we losing students through that attrition over the course of the year in any one particular group. This shows a fairly representative group in terms of our attrition seems to be distributed across our student body, with the exception, if you'll note, our African-American students, we are disproportionate there in this one particular year. And so that's a great, again, this type of work as we're doing our renewal, this provides us a great lens in terms of digging in deeper to find out why that may have happened and is that a persistent issue. And then in terms of our school environment and the guidelines in terms of facilities, transportation, health and safety, again, in partnership with many of the departments at Gresham-Barlow School District, we are meeting all the standards that we are required to meet, and I believe in many cases exceeding, especially with regard to health and public safety over the course of this past year. Tremendous support and great support to keep our staff and our students safe, of course. And then the last bullet point here was just around additional obligations and specifically Cal's tracking and following the existing charter law and any modifications to it. And we do that with the support of ODE. So I move quickly there, but I know we wanted to be able to move to the vote. If there are any questions, I can certainly take them now.
I had a question. I just wrote them down from earlier. On one of your very first slides that you had, it would be nice to see not just data points, but trend, just giving us a number. Hard to know, is that up or down? Are we celebrating or are we digging deeper? So that was in one of the first ones. Are you at a waiting list or capacity? And I know this has been a weird year, but kind of where are we at in terms of attendance at Cal?
Great question. So we are just in the midst of our recruiting season. This year, at this time last year, we had 360 applicants. We are just at 296. So we're feeling really good in terms of we can't recruit in person. We're doing all of our recruiting virtually and at a distance. And so given that circumstance, we're feeling really, it's a healthy number already. Our goal is at least 315 and we're within 20 of that already.
Okay. And then I little bit concerned about the Hispanic students withdrawing, because I think that was also a question over the last couple of years. What supports were they getting? Was there a language issue? What was kind of going on? So that would be something to dig into a little bit deeper as well on making sure that all the students are able to be engaged and successful there. I do appreciate Cal greatly and the flexibility they've had in modifying their program to make it relevant for the kids. So those are my questions.
I would be happy to continue to dive into that data and provide answers for you. I don't have the trend lines available right now, but I'm happy to do that for you.
Any other questions? Okay, there's a recommended action.
I have a question. Is this a one-year renewal, Carla? Is this a multi-year? It doesn't have a term.
No, but Steve did mention in his request that it is a 5-year renewal. We did a 1-year renewal. It's not written on in the agenda item, but the request is for a 5-year renewal of the Cal Charter. Last year we did a 1-year extension of the previous charter in hopes of doing a deeper dive into some of the elements of the charter because Steve was new in his position. But we now need to make a decision. The board needs to make a decision to either vote to renew for 5 years or to non-renew for 5 years, in which case, if there is a non-renewal, you would have to say what elements of the good faith evaluation that Steve just presented did not meet the charter and the expectations of the board. But right now the action is for the board to approve to renew the charter for 5 years. After that point, then I will work with Steve and the other districts on refining the details of the charter contract.
I think it's a needless point of clarification, but I understand that recommendation is coming from Cal. Is there any reservation from our district leadership team, Dr. Perra, looking at you in approving a 5-year? So you would advise the board to accept this charter or to approve it? Yeah.
Yes, I'm using gestures. Yes, Chair Peterson, I would advise that. We will continue to work on improvements of the CAL program. Um, Again, approving it for 5 years doesn't mean we can't make some tweaks and changes along the way.
I'll move to approve the renewal of the public charter school for Center for Advanced Learning, or CAL, for 5 years.
Second.
Moved by Director O'Connell, seconded by Director Howitt, to approve the renewal of the public charter school Center for Advanced Learning, CAL, for 5 years. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for your leadership.
Our next action item is the MESD, Multnomah Educational Services District Programs and Services Proposal Local Service Plan, and this has my name on it. The Multnomah ESD Programs and Services Proposal was developed by several advisory committees and reviewed by the local district superintendents. In order for these programs and services to be included in the Multnomah ESD budget, it is necessary that 2/3 of the district boards representing more than 50% of the student population pass authorizing resolutions. The estimated budgets for the proposed programs conform to the guidelines established by the ESD board for the 2021-22 school year budget planning. Acceptance of the proposal does not commit the Gresham-Barlow schools to participate in all of the programs included in the plan. The administration appreciates the flexibility offered by the ESD and its programs, which allows the district to adjust the level of service based upon changing needs of the student population. Information specific to the 2021-22 MESD services provided for the Gresham-Barlow School District will be summarized at the board meeting. The full proposal local service plan is provided with this executive summary. And we do have a local service plan 21-22 that was provided in the agenda. Are there any questions about this program? And I would expect it to be directed to the district leadership team.
There are no reservations, Chair Peterson.
So I'd move to approve the MESD Local Service Plan 2021-22 Programs and Service Proposal as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved by Director Howitt, seconded by Director O'Connell to approve the MESD Local Service Plan 2021-22 Programs and Services Proposal as presented. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Sorry, any opposed? Okay. Okay, I am aware that we cut the return to learn update off in order to have the calendar conversation related to sports and athletics. Dr. Pereira, there's no board action required. Board, I would be inclined to leave that in the summary that we can access, and then pose those questions directly to the district leadership team and inform Director Gomez or myself if you would like to see that back on the agenda in the next, within the next 30 days. Okay.
I support that.
I think we're all hitting that hour. Updates from board members. I will start with Director Howitt.
Just real briefly, I realized that this week was the Read Across America program, which I have missed being able to do. Just wanted to say that if there is a teacher or classroom that would like for me to read to their classroom virtually, I would love to do that. Picked up some new books that are not in the Dr. Seuss genre anymore. I have a couple of them that are suitable for both the K1-2 kids up into the little bit older students, a little bit different books, and I've thoroughly enjoyed reading them, and I'd love to read them out loud to the students.
Director O'Connell.
Oh, good. I don't have to. I was going to unmute. A couple of things. First, I want to thank all the staff for the hard work that they have done on the return to learn. It is just amazing the amount of juggling that you've had to do. Again, I know there's a lot of iterations through this whole process, but thank you very much. Another thing, there are some volunteer opportunities for the ecology field study site for the Gresham-Barlow School District. I think Carla is well aware of what's going on. I think PGE is looking for 4 additional volunteers. I have been asked, but unfortunately I will not be available. It is this Saturday, and I believe it's April 17th. Is that correct, Carla?
Yes, and if you want to volunteer, go onto the Solve website or let me know and I'll send you a link. It's a planting party. We're picking up the native plants tomorrow, and the city of Gresham donated some money to help us purchase the plants. So it's a great partnership with many players involved.
So it's a great opportunity. And finally, thanks, Carla, for the rundown. I feel bad that I won't be able to be there because it's a great opportunity. But some of you may or may not know, but that I will not be running for my position 3 Zone 2 this year for the upcoming election. It's time for me to roll off. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've been very thankful for all the work this district has done for our children. I feel that I have served well in the past 12 years with the utmost integrity, and really have enjoyed the people I've worked with. But again, it's time to move on. It's interesting, this has not been a decision that's been done lightly. Actually, I considered rolling off 4 years ago, but we passed a bond. And as co-chair of the PAC, I had a responsibility to the voters that we would spend the money prudently. And that has been done, and it's been done well. And so I feel like I'm leaving this role and leaving the district in a better place than when we started. We have better schools, we have excellent staff. We had good staff before, no problem there. And I believe we have a superintendent and a cabinet that is moving the district in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. We're going to have a big old send off. We're going to figure out how to do that. Director Orozco Beach.
Hi. Oh my goodness, I didn't really prepare anything, but on my end, just busy with work, just working around the clock, just like most people, you know, that just work in the public. I work in Representative Ricky Ruiz's office, and just to kind of just say some, or just mention a bill that we're working on, which is education related. We're calling it the Menstrual Dignity Act, where we are hoping to bring menstrual products to all public schools within the state of Oregon, free of charge to all of our menstruating students. And this is the people's work. I'm not just like saying this like, hey, come out and support us. But if you are a proponent of supporting menstrual products in public schools, then we should be having a hearing for it soon. But go ahead and mail your representatives, email them, reach out, try to get more traction going for it. We're trying to get like a really big turnout for it because period poverty is a real thing, and it's something that needs to be addressed. And I know there are many things we need to address in our public schools, but I think bringing dignity to students in that aspect is something that is long overdue. And another thing I'm looking forward to is the ethnic studies bill. I'm glad that we will be working on that in the upcoming weeks. I'm just really excited for a lot of the bills that are coming up and the changes that we are going to see once our schools open. I hope to see a whole new curriculum, a whole new buildings. I'm just really excited for once we return in the fall, hopefully holding my thumbs that we can open up completely in the fall, which I'm still feeling very confident about it.
Thanks, Amanda. Director Peluso.
I want to just applaud the classified staff. They just, you know, they're on the buses, they're on just the stuff that a lot of people don't want to do. So I really appreciate their work. And it was a great day a couple of days ago when the sun was shining, and all down on Main City Park, a lot of kids were riding their bikes and doing all that kind of things that we want our kids doing, and they were having a good time. So that's a pretty great way to start a couple of days. So yeah, that's and I'm halfway through all the vaccines, so I'm happy to get that done, or when that will be done. And that's about it for me.
Thanks, Carla. Director Stowers.
I want to tell everyone happy Women's History Month and Irish American Heritage Month. Last month it was Black History Month, and we didn't make any announcements, but I hope moving forward as a board that we are better recognizing, acknowledging, and celebrating our diverse communities. That's it.
Thanks, Robin. Director Gomez.
Yeah, I want to thank Principal Miles for inviting me to read to East Gresham. I sent my recording yesterday or 2 nights ago. Of course, like Chris said, I would have loved to have been there with the kids in person. So I hope next year we get to do that. Also thank our SUN coordinators and staff at Hollydale. I had the opportunity to go pick up activity supplies for my niece, and we enjoy working on those together. And thank you to our classified. I don't know if I've shared before, my mom is a classified staff member at a school, and I know how hard she works, and I know the difference that our classified staff make. And I know our schools wouldn't function the way they are without them. So thank you for everything that you do, especially this year. You have all been essential in providing services to our students and our families. So thank you for everything that you do. And I also want to just mention the importance of compromise. This is a tough year for all of us. So I do appreciate the work of all of our teachers and our district leadership team, because it's not an easy year, and it's every single decision that we make is a tough decision. I live in a multi-generational home with an essential worker, with a healthcare worker. I mentioned my mom works in a school, my sister works in a school. It's tough. I'm living this every day. I've been living it for a year. So every decision that I make it very carefully. And I can back up every decision that I make from experience and research. So I hope the community understands that, and I hope that they remember that we were elected to serve our students and to look out for what's best for our students. So thank you everyone for all the work that we're all doing together.
And in the interest of time, I'll forego tonight. Thanks everybody for sharing. We have an information item. We have 2 that are pushed to a future agenda item, but we do still have the financial report as of January 31st, 2021. Jordan Ely.
Thank you, Chair Peterson. Luckily for all of you, it's a pretty short report tonight. Seeing a lot of the same trend that we've seen for the last several months. Projected revenue is currently 1.6 million below budget. Projected expenditures are nearly 4.1 below budget, continuing the overall trend that we've seen throughout the year. I should mention that in our budget this year, we budgeted a deficit. And so this doesn't mean that we have a balanced budget. We're still spending more than the revenue. We're still on track to spend more than the revenue we expect to receive this year. So we will still be drawing down on cash from our beginning fund balance. And so I think sometimes when I report it this way, maybe I'm not fully representing it accurately. I wanted to make sure to do that. As the district begins transitioning to different levels of in-person learning, we do expect to see the expenditure projections stabilize, though the fiscal impact is not completely known. The primary differences since the report as of December 31st are related to expenditure projections. Payroll and associated costs are trending favorably, and the charter school deficit is now projected at under $1 million. This is the first time this year that we've projected that deficit to be below $1 million. The general fund ending fund balance is now projected to be just over 18.4 million. And that's it for tonight.
Any questions of Jordan? Okay. Okay, closing items. For announcements, we previously had a work session scheduled for March 11th, next Thursday. That has been canceled because in its place, we've scheduled a board strategic planning session from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. All day Friday, March 12th. That will be an in-person meeting. We'll look at how to facilitate virtual connectivity to it. Then March 18th is Budget 101 at 7 p.m. Is that virtual? I believe Budget 101 is going to be virtual, so there will be a link disseminated. Then spring break. Hope our educators and our staff and our families are able to rest and recuperate. And then April 1st, we will have a board work session followed by a regular board business meeting, location or virtual to be determined. With that, there being no other business before the board, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.